Here today at the Guam Congress Building. I want to recognize Senator Mary Torres. Thank you, Senator. Senator Regine Lee and Senator Espadon. Thank you very much for joining me this afternoon. The Committee on Tourism has called this roundtable meeting together with the Guam Visitors Bureau and other government agencies and those in the industry to speak about and discuss the state of affairs of tourism. As we all know, tourism has been, is our #1 industry and has been very, very successful over the past few years. And we've got to give credit where credit is due. I want to thank GVB, the hardworking men and women there in the industry for getting us to where we're at today. So thank you very much. Just like anything, we do have our challenges, and it's showing that our challenges are before us today. And so we want to be able to work with you, work with the community, and look at how we can mitigate this challenge that we see before us. I want to thank the government agencies who are here, BBMR, Mr. Lester Carlson, thank you. The Guam Airport Authority, Mr. Chuck Atta, thank you for being here, and also Revenue Tax Director, Mr. Camacho, thank you very much for being here. The way we'll do this is we'll have GVB do a presentation as the committee requested in terms of the state of tourism today. And after that, then we'll have these discussions on what we're seeing today and how we're going to navigate through this as a community. We've just recently, of course, passed our 2018 budget. We've just started, and obviously we may look at ways to kind of, we may have to revise and look at altering what is happening with that, with the decline in visitor arrivals. But we also wanted to ensure that we have some sort of plan here to help our business community, the small business owners, those in the industry, kind of help them weather this, this challenge out. Okay, so we'll go ahead and start. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Hafaday Senator Rodriguez, members of the 34th Guam Legislature, GVB Board of Directors, management, staff, tourism partners, and people of Guam. My name is Milton Morinaga, the Chairman of Guam Visitors Bureau Board of Directors. I also wear a separate hat in our tourism industry as a Managing Director of PHR Ken Micronesia. This roundtable discussion is a great way to put all our cards on the table in terms of what GVB and our industry is doing to address the serious issue of decline of visitors' arrivals, the ongoing issues in our source markets, and how North Korea has affected Guam's tourism industry since August. I want to point out that we are happy the least affected market by this North Korea issue has been our South Korean visitors. While our Korean visitors' arrivals have been great, I'm also here today to tell you on behalf of our board that we still need Japan visitors to Guam. We need a strong Japan market as we continue to cultivate and sustain Korea and smaller source market too. It's imperative that while we are doing this, we need to keep our Japan and Korean market stronger than ever. But we need additional resources to do our jobs and maximize Guam's reach. For me personally, it's all about product development. We must continue to develop and improve the visitors' experience in order to bring more visitors and keep our visitors coming back for more. A repeat business is needed in Guam too. I look forward to sharing what we have done so far and hearing for how we can move forward towards together in making our islands a better place to live, work, play, and visit. Sizusumasi for your time and commitment to our tourism industry. We have our board of directors here to share our ideas, and I have President and CEO Nathan Denai to give you the recap of what GVB has been doing and will be doing. Thank you.
Thank you to our Oversight Chair, Tourism Oversight Chair Dennis Rodriguez, and the members of the legislature for being here today and mobilizing so quickly to give everyone an update of our current state of the tourism market. So thank you very much for your presence. I have a short 50-slide presentation, but I'll try not to kill everyone with PowerPoint and go as quickly as possible. So please stop me at any point to ask any questions, but I'll try to get through as quick as possible. And I think the screens are working, so I'd just like to start our first, and you have a copy here at the table. So we have our historical arrivals from 1967. The first year we had 5,500 tourists, mainly coming from Japan, and in 2016 we reached the heights of 1.5 million visitors arrivals. So that's a 33% growth from 2011 to 2016. And as the Senator mentioned, tourism is so important to Guam as our #1 industry. And we do an economic impact report. And we used to do it every 3 to 4 years. We did one last year, and now we're going to start doing it every year. So we just got the 2016 numbers that are reflected on the screen. So you can see versus 2010, we almost have 110 million more in government revenue provided by the visitor industry. The tourism economy sales is 1.85 billion, and I think the most important thing here at the bottom is the jobs provided. So we went from 18,400 jobs to now over 21,000 jobs, or 33% of all jobs on Guam are tourism related. So I'm just going to recap quickly the timeline of recent events going back to last fiscal year, October 2016. So while we've been on a record tear in the tourism industry, we did see some challenges on the horizon. In October 2016, Delta and Korean Air discontinued their Osaka flights, both night flights from Osaka. Then in December 2016, we did have the new airline come, HK Express from Hong Kong. But in 2017, both EVA Air and HK Express suspended their services to Guam. EVA Air was twice weekly service from Taipei. They stopped because of internal issues at EVA Air with some management changes or leadership changes. And HK Express stopped. Their load factors were okay, but they are a low-cost carrier, and I guess the expenses of flying to Guam made the route not sustainable for them. So we brought these issues up in our GVB's budget hearing shortly after that in June. And then in August, we submitted written testimony to the legislature, also reiterating our concerns and challenges that we saw on the horizon. I think just a few days after that, in the middle of August, like August 12th, then we had the North Korea issue and the threats to Guam. That was in August. In September 2017, Delta announced the cancellation of the Narita Guam flight. They had twice daily service that they ended up canceling. I could speak for a while on Delta, but they were really pulling back their presence in Japan, and as part of the realignment for Asia, the Guam flight became not sustainable for them. We did have some good news in September, where we welcomed our sixth Korean carrier to Guam, Air Seoul, a subsidiary of Asiana Airlines. And then in October 2017, in response to the loss of demand and the loss of many groups from Japan, United reduced some of the flights in the short term. So you can see in the next slide, our research department put a projection for the next, these are the actual numbers for August, September, and the first 17 days of October. So you could see in August, before the North Korea threat, the first 10, 12 days of the month, we were actually up 5 to 7%. But we finished the month at minus 0.5%. But even that result, last year was the best month in tourism history in August last year. So still quite a good result. In September 17, overall we were minus 12.4%, really starting to see the effects of the North Korea news. And in October, we're about the same, about minus 12% for the month. The next slide we have is our projection for the remaining of this calendar year, 2017, and we also put there the 16 numbers and broke it down into by our major markets. So you could see primarily, Japan's a severe decrease of almost 20,000 pax for October. We're looking about 20,000 reduction in November, and December a little bit more than 20,000. So mainly what we're seeing, and I'll speak about this more, is October through December is not a leisure peak for Japan travelers. August is their summertime. Now they're just coming back to school. So we really focused on the group business with our friends in the Japan travel industry. We have Murata-san from the JGTA. But the result of that is groups, especially school groups and company groups, are the most risk adverse. So no one wants to be responsible, even how minute the danger is. But on the flip side, Korea continues to be strong and growing, up roughly 30% for the rest of the year. As I mentioned, Taiwan, you can see decreases there. It's kind of twofold. We did lose the seat capacity from EVA Air, which is 40% of the seats. But Taiwan is also, pretty much every market besides Korea has been affected by the North Korea news. So for calendar year, we're looking at roughly 1.52 million visitors at this point. So minus 1% versus last year. Everyone still with me? I'm gonna crank through more exciting numbers. The next slide we have is just showing our fiscal year numbers, and our research team right now had revised the projection for FY18 at 1.51 million. This year we just finished the fiscal year with a record fiscal year. Congratulations to all at 1.56 million. Next slide we have is we broke down the new projections that we just presented to you by market. So you can see the major effects there are to the Japan arrival, which is now went from 685 to about 590, about 100,000 less. And then you can see the rest of the markets below. Okay, I'm going to move on to talk a little bit about inventory and capacity. And so really for tourism, the two supply factors are mainly hotel rooms and air seats. And you need to have enough of those and those in balance to have a sustainable industry as a starting point. So air seat capacity has, and we've been really seeing this number for quite a while, is been decreasing in Japan. You could see we had 1 million seats in 2016. Keep in mind, probably 5-10 years before that, we had 1.3, 1.4 million seats. This year we're projecting just a little less than 750,000 seats. You can see Korea, the seat capacity going in the other direction, growing to over 800,000 seats, more seats than Japan. We have Taiwan, as I mentioned, the 40% loss of seats of EVA Air. Philippines, some seat loss, and then Hong Kong is a big one because we do not have the additional 8 flights from HK Express for next year. Next slide has the hotel room inventory. And as part of our Tourism 2020 plan, we welcome speaker. Thank you for joining us, sir. Our hotel room inventory for 2015 was about 8,900 rooms. About the same in 2016, and in 2017 that grew to about 9,244. Remember, our ultimate goal for Tourism 2020 was to get to 10,091 rooms. So quite a bit off the pace of where we need to go, and the only hotel right now in the pipeline is the Tsubaki Tower being built by Ken Corporation. So I'm going to move into trends in the Japan market. Any questions so far? I'll keep going. We had the Dusutani come online, and then some of the other hotels had renovated rooms. There's always a constant process of some going offline, online from renovations. But right now, really new construction, the only new construction is the Tsubaki Tower. We also have Jay Rojas from Gita with us, so I'm sure you can chime in more on the hotel situation. For Japan, a major trend we're seeing is the age population of Japan, and this not only is the total population of Japan decreasing because of low birth rates, but people are getting older and living longer. So it's really much an aging population. And you can see Guam has historically been a family market for Japanese, but there are just less families in general in Japan. We're also a wedding honeymoon market. People are not getting married and therefore not getting married or honeymooning as much. The next biggest factor, I think, to keep in mind is the yen exchange rate. So when I started the bureau in 2011, the yen rate was at 80 to the dollar. So you got to keep in mind what this really affects too is our U.S. carriers. So quite different from Korea, 80% of our carriers out of Japan are U.S. carriers between Delta and United. So they report in U.S. dollars. So when the yen is 80 to the dollar, that really helps them as far as pricing and their costs. But you can see in 2015, right when we started seeing a serious decrease in kind of some of the air seats, is when the yen was at 121. And then it's kind of stayed at about 110. So really they're reporting 90 cents to the dollar when they report in dollars. So it makes Guam a more expensive destination for Japanese. The next slide just reflects that exchange rate together with the decreasing arrivals. Okay. Now I'll move on to show the Japan and Korea outbound packs. So Japan outbound packs is pretty much stable. It's, any year I could predict it, it's going to be roughly 16 to 18 million. 20 years ago it was 16.7. Today, or last 2016, 17.1. This year I think it'll be a little bit higher, but so it's pretty stable. But that population is an aging outbound population. Korea, on the other hand, you can see the tremendous growth, 22.4 million. And curious to note, the country only has 50 million population. This year, it's going to be closer to 25 million outbound. So just a tremendous outbound number from Korea. And you can see the next slide shows our Japan outbound going back to 1996, and then 10 years ago, and 2016, and our market share has been decreasing in Japan. A lot of that also has to do with Japan is really focused on inbound tourism into Japan and domestic tourism. And when I speak about the aging population, there's so many destinations now from Snow, Sapporo, Nagano, going all the way down to Okinawa for beach destination. They're developing new islands, Shikoku Islands. So there's much more options domestically for Japanese, but more than that, as Japan becomes an inbound destination, their goal for inbound passengers by 2020, they set it at 20 million like 5 years ago, but maybe 6 years ago. They passed that goal like 3 years ago, and now they reset their goal for 2020 at 40 million. So you can see they have 40 million people coming in and 16 to 18 million going out. So that means there's a lot of flights to a lot of destinations that weren't there before, and that means it goes both ways. So now we're competing against Vietnam, which we didn't compete against before. We're competing against Cambodia, Cebu. So a lot more competition, especially from Southeast Asia, which is not in US dollars and is a lower priced option a lot of times. Domestic is always also lower priced when you look at Okinawa. So the last slide here I have is the visitor arrivals mix. You can see 10 years ago we were 80% Japanese, 10% Korean, and others. 2012 we were 71%, 14% Korea, and then 15% others. And you can see really last year Japan was about half, 50%, and Korea was 34%. The other also grew, so you can see a big growth in some of the smaller markets as well. This pie, by the way, is getting bigger, not reflected here. This year, Korea and Japan are pretty much neck and neck as far as the visitor arrival mix. All right. Okay, I'm going to keep plowing forward. Any, Chairman? Good? Okay. So the board has been very aware of these trends in Japan, and have been doing everything we can to really think strategically how we can improve the situation. And I'm not going to go through in great detail, but I want to share the 2-year strategic plan that the board adopted for FY17 and 18 and has already been implemented. I spoke about the challenges, so I'm not going to cover those. And then the opportunities, though, related to those challenges are we need to increase the air service. We need more PR, we need more online advertising, and we need to grow specific targets, including the leisure travelers, but also group and MICE travelers, also promoting events and social groups like schools. And then really we're trying to partner more with our industry on the sales and marketing and PR opportunities, and not do it alone, but work together with the industry to get things done. So our overall theme was business not as usual and doing things differently, which I think we have successfully implemented this year. So the first thing is to really develop our air service and take seats. And I have a very profound quote here that I just came up with myself. You can't grow arrivals with less air seats. So what we did this year is we really tried to support our existing carriers with more PR and marketing cooperative programs, make sure that their flights are full. Something that really developed direct benefits is this airline charter incentive program. So we lost seats with Delta and Korean, and this January we launched a charter incentive program providing marketing funds for additional charters, and we were able to this year double the amount of charters. We went from 100 and we're scheduled to have 200 by the end of this year. So additional 30,000 seats. We communicate with existing carriers about additional service, working with our partners, and then we continue to meet with new potential carriers. We also launched a program to provide marketing support. It's very expensive to start a new airline route, and so for any new service, we provided a program, a marketing fund of $250,000 for anyone that would come and start a new route. It had to be at least 4 times a week and had to run for the entire year. So we had HK Express had signed up for this program and we're set to launch from Nagoya in October, but postponed because of the North Korea issue. Also, we have our friends from the airport. We work very closely with them in visiting. With this new program we launched in April, we pretty much visited every carrier, Japanese carrier, whether that's full service carrier. We also visited the low-cost carriers of Japan, also our existing partners to share this program, as well as some of the foreign carriers. So pretty much the aviation landscape in Japan as far as airlines, there's ANA and JAL, and then they do have Japanese LCCs, but they're quite new. So they're still flying domestically, they're still flying short haul to Asia, and Guam is definitely on their radar, but they're just not, either they don't have the proper aircraft or at that point in their business to really resume Guam flights. But we continue to meet with them and constantly push them to add more service. I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but the next one is we really wanted to win the web. And what I mean by that is we shifted all our advertising this year to online. And so we're working with Yahoo, travel websites, TripAdvisors, YouTube. So everything we've done has gone online, as well as the online travel agents. And we created lots of engaging content to really showcase our destination and pushing those online. Okay, I'm going to skip ahead to, and then sales and marketing efforts, as I mentioned, we were really active this past year and will continue to be to work with our partners in the different cities where we have direct flights. We did a tourism summit last year with the industry partners, thank them for their support to really to come to Japan and sell our destination together. We're also working to, we have a program specifically to incentivize new MICE or group initiatives, so providing help to an incentive plan for MICE and groups. And then wedding, we're also working with all the wedding companies on a cooperative marketing campaign. So I think it's been a good teamwork trying to get the industry, because really GVB doesn't, so we don't sell anything, we're kind of a hub. So we kind of bring everyone together like we're doing here today to market Guam together, and that way we have a bigger synergistic result. If everyone's okay, I will just now speak specifically about Japan and some of the plans we have to address this very serious North Korea effect, if that's okay with Senator Rodriguez. You're still awake, right? Okay. Okay. Milton's still awake, so I will continue to talk. So we were when the North Korean news came out, we know that Japan is one of the most sensitive markets when it comes to safety. You've seen it when the SARS outbreak happened. They just stopped traveling even if it doesn't directly affect Japan, they will just stop traveling. They have really pulled back from Europe because of Paris and other London attacks. So it's a very, very sensitive market. And we saw that, and there was a fear in August because most of the group travelers would be coming in September. So we actually went together with the LT when this news broke, and we did 3 different press conferences and met with all the government officials to really tell them that there had been no change in the threat level on Guam, despite the hours and hours of CNN and BBC coverage and all the reports. However, when the parents got back from school in August, many of the school groups showed concern and started canceling. So actually, this is a group we visited in Kobe High School. These students were very much disappointed. They had been learning about Guam. We're excited to actually see Guam, and they gave us these paper cranes. But we're still trying to keep the good relationship and understanding their culture that they couldn't come. But these school groups planned for 3 years, so we want to keep that relationship so that they come back next year. And I think everyone saw I don't know if you saw the PDN yesterday. They did have an article about the Japanese visitor drop, but you can see top concerns for future travel. Terrorism was 65% and safety 61%. Korea was safety was 35%, but terrorism wasn't a factor on that list. So Japan, just a very generally cautious country. Kind of just to illustrate the point further, this is Junko baseball. So for 23 years, we had welcomed this Junko organization, which Junko means it's a rubber baseball. So they play this in the preseason as they get ready for Japan. But we bring 4 to 5 universities and they play with our local teams. So I just got an email yesterday that they're not going to be coming this year, and they were very sorry. But that's just very much the Japanese way of who will take responsibility of something. If we know nothing's going to happen, but who will take responsibility if it does. So that being said, I think the number we threw out was we actually counted at the beginning about 7,000 packs from groups that canceled, but I think the number has grown since then. But together with our board, together with our JGTA, which is the Japan Guam Travel Agents here on Guam, and then in Japan we have what's called the JGTC, Japan Guam Travel Council, and in each of the major areas of Japan, so we have 3 of them, we work together with all the agents and we get together on a quarterly basis. So together with them, we came up with a Japan Sales and Marketing Recovery Plan. And I'll just quickly go over it. It kind of consists of 3 parts. Well, let me explain. Overall, this is the logo for the plan. And this year, we're not going to come out and say Guam is safe because Japanese will never say anywhere is safe, but we want to say this is our 50th anniversary between the 1967, the first flight that came, a Pan Am 707 with 109 Japanese travel agents and media. And today we're celebrating 50 years of a long relationship, a very friendly, safe relationship with Guam. And so under this campaign, we're going to be doing sales co-ops with the agents. So we're working with the traditional travel agents as well as the OTAs to offer some really great offers to their customers to incentivize them to come to Guam with value add coupons and low prices. And then the other thing we're doing is we're planning a mega fam trip. So a fam trip is a familiarization tour, and just like we brought those agents 50 years ago and the media, we're going to be doing the same, and we're trying to bring at least 400 agents and media to Guam in November, the end of November. Quite ambitious in a short amount of time to see the destination. The media will write about our destination and see that there's no panic here. The people on Guam feel very safe, and it's a very peaceful destination. The third part is an advertising campaign. So Guam, we do not have Japan is one of the most expensive countries to do business in, and our advertising budget is quite small, so we have to be quite targeted with everything we do. And so for our recovery campaign, we want to do a combination of, I showed you the logo, sorry, next page is Friends Now, Friends Forever, Guam, 50 years of Japan Guam tourism. So this is, all the travel agent partners I mentioned will be using that logo within their offers. So there's kind of a cohesive thing. And then we'll be doing ads on Yahoo, which is the biggest portal site in Japan. And together with that, we're going to do a one-time run in the paper. Normally we don't advertise in the newspaper, but because this is where a lot of the Guam headlines are about the North Korea threat, we want to have this very nice ad talking about peace and friendship between Guam and Japan to kind of at least start changing people's perception of Guam. So this will run somewhere towards the end of November, December. We don't want to run it too early while we're in the heart of this North Korea issue. Next up, we're going to be doing some social media, hashtag Guam 50th. And so this is our campaign to really get us through the end of the year and help us recover so that we have a better first quarter of next year. This next slide, I'm not going to spend too much time, but I just want to show the results of the charter seat program. You could see March, we had 3,000 last year. This year we had 10,000. And so you can see the increase in charter flights. We did have charter flights in November, but those got lost because those were booked by group travel. So that was about 5,500 seats that we lost. December charters, a little less than last year, but not too bad considering, we're in the middle of this North Korea issue. I'll skip the next one. That's just our year-end charter plan. And I'm going to be wrapping up soon, but I just want to focus air service development. I mentioned the HK Express moving their flight to the summertime. We've been meeting with Japan Airlines. Governor Kavo, in fact, had met with them in early September, and they may be interested. Their once daily flight from Narita is quite full, and there's no reason why we don't think they would be able to run an extra operation. And T-Way is a very running a lot of charters and interested in doing more charters in Japan. Some of the foreign carriers like a HK or T-Way is limited on the number of flights they can run out of Japan, being that they're not Japanese. There's only so many fifth freedom rights, they call them. Last, thank you very much for your time. I want to share with everyone our Visit Guam 2018 campaign. So 2 years ago, we launched Visit Guam 2016 only on Guam, featuring on our uniqueness of our destination. And this year, we're in the middle of Visit Guam 2017, the Year of Love. Next year, we're going to be focusing on social media. And so we came up with the hashtag or the campaign name InstaGuam. So we really want to focus on Guam as a great place for an instant vacation. We're just a short 3 to 4 hour flight away from many of our Asian countries. And we want people to share their experience on Guam on SNS. And the idea behind this is to let people visiting Guam share the message of how beautiful, safe, and great Guam is. I think it's not on here, but I added one last slide, Nico. So I spent a lot of time, I'm kind of a marketing nerd, so there's the marketing mix, right? So there's 4 P's in marketing: product, place, price, and promotion. And people will say, we just need to, it's a combination of these 4 things that help make a successful marketing campaign. So sometimes people say, oh, we don't need to do marketing, we just need to, improve the product. But if you improve the product, but no one knows about it, and there's no promotion, or it's too expensive, then no one's going to buy it. So it's important to keep in mind, we have to do all of these things to be successful. And I didn't spend much time today, I know, about the product, but I'll just as an aside, we just need to continually improve the product. Tourism used to be kind of a throwaway industry in a lot of places, but now people are really, because of the growth in tourism around the world, we're on a record pace. All destinations, and I mentioned Japan, are focusing on tourism, and that means they're investing a lot into their tourism product and everything about tourism. So, we compete on a global level with places that are much bigger than with us. So, obviously, anything we can do to to better our product and develop our product further is much appreciated. And I think GVB has, together with the legislature, has partnered to do successful things to also improve the product. So. I didn't really present that today. I know there's a lot of people that want to talk, and we got to cover the important North Korea issue, and Japan. So I focused on that, sir. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Nate. I want to recognize the speaker. Thank you, Senator Castro, as well. Thank you for being here. Nate, I want to thank you for that presentation. And it seems the strategy moving forward is really reactionary towards the North Korea issue, which I know we have to be able to address. But what concerns me and what I think we need to discuss here is, as we said, Japan is very important. The chairman has said we need Japan, and I agree. But the trend, I guess, for the past few years has shown that Japan has been declining. It was not just because I think this North Korea issue has exacerbated it, but it's been declining. And when you take a look at the numbers between Guam, Hawaii, as the other U.S. destination, at least for the last part of 2016, beginning of 2017 to present, Hawaii has increased their arrivals. And so, for me, I don't know what it is. Is it the pricing? Are they cheaper now to price there, or is it the same price to come to Guam? So that's something I want to hear from GVB is the route, I think, of Japan didn't just happen, because of the North Korean issue. It's been happening for the past several years. The outbound from Japan as well, at least from 2015, 2016, you see it increasing. 2017, you see it increase as well of outbound travelers from Japan, but they're not coming here. And so that's where I really would like to know what's GVB's plan. Besides this reactionary plan to kind of diffuse the fear of people saying we can't come there because it's not safe, right? I think that's very important to know. And then we got this information from the Japan National Tourism Organization. You see, for example, in Korea, you see the outbound from Japan to Korea. You see them also you see increases over the past few years. Right, so that's something I'd like to hear more about from that standpoint.
Yep.
And also, because we'll pass it on to others who want to speak, also at least from the government standpoint, right, is this revised projection in arrivals is about a 7% or 6.5% decrease in the projection. And how does that impact what we've passed in terms of revenue for the TAF, number one, but also that ripple effect in terms of GRT, employment taxes, because that's where we have the stakeholders here. It's kind of trickling down as we're seeing it now. So maybe Nate can answer the first part, and then we'll have the others.
Yeah, that's a very good question, Senator. So as I mentioned, we're celebrating the 50 years of tourism from Japan. So for most of that history, Guam was a sole source market dependent on Japanese. And so Japan travel agents would buy up all the hotel room inventory and all the airline seats, and then they would market and sell Guam. And most of the time they were able to package it together and sell it at a very affordable value price. So Guam was pretty much I would say a value budget destination. If you didn't have the time to go to Hawaii, Guam would be a great short trip at a more affordable price. Also very good for families as well. But as part of our Tourism 2020 strategic plan, right, part of the goal was to increase the quality of the yield and diversify our markets. So what happens now with diversification is we have a secondary market in Korea that has such a strong outbound. I showed you the numbers. There's 25 million outbound and a 50 million population. Japan is 120 million population and a 17 million outbound. So that puts a lot of pressure now that when we're not solely dependent on that single market. So our prices of our hotel rooms, as reflected in the hot tax and the TAF collections, have pretty much doubled in the last 5 years, right? So and the package price for Guam in the market is much more expensive than it was just 3, 4, 5 years ago. And so in that 4 Ps, our price has definitely increased. So when you're talking about a destination like Hawaii, sometimes the Guam price and the Hawaii package price is very, very close now. And then now you're talking about Okinawa, which is reporting in yen, doesn't have that dollar conversion. Okinawa is much cheaper than we are. So now we've really much increased our price, and that's why it's important to increase the product that people are getting the value that they want. But there will be an adjustment. Anytime someone raises your price 30%, you're going to see some fall off in volume. I think the other key point is on the air seats. I've been spending a lot of time focused on trying to get more flights from Japan and learning a lot about air seat development and route development. It is a very complex, aviation is, and Sam's here, could probably go on it more about me, but very complex on, do you have the rights to fly somewhere? Do you have the airplanes to fly somewhere? To fly to Guam, you have to have ETOPS certification system, which costs money and resources, which a lot of the Japanese LCCs don't have and would have to procure and get on multiple planes. So I'm going to give you just another example. So now we have what's called the long haul LCC. So we have low-cost carriers flying into Japan from places like Vietnam, Philippines, all across Southeast Asia. So those are short haul, single body airlines. But now we have long haul LCCs like Scoot, which is owned by Singapore Air, and what's the other one is Air Asia X. So they started flying out of KIX, but they fly into KIX because we're full of Malaysians and Singaporeans and Southeast Asians wanting to enjoy Osaka. but that means, and then now they started flying to Hawaii, and their introductory fare from Kansai, from Osaka this summer was $200 to Hawaii, $600 business round trip. So that's what I'm saying. Travel it's a very competitive market in Japan. Like I say, the pie is the same size, but now it's getting cut up into, before 20 years ago, the chairman, if you wanted to go to a beach resort, you pretty much Hawaii, Guam, Saipan, or domestic Okinawa. Now Cebu, Da Nang, Cambodia, Vietnam. I mean, there's so many places you can go. So these are all the issues we're dealing with. But that's why I think a key point is always chicken and the egg. I think Guam has a very strong brand name in Japan. Talk about 50 years that we've been building up a very strong brand name. So I think if we can continue to, attract. Well, first of all, we have to keep our existing airlift, and we're working very closely with United to do that and cooperate better. But then also bring in some more airline seats into the market. So I think that it starts with that, and that's why we've been so focused on that. And for the board this year, we're talking about other ways to work with the airlines and incentivize airlines. But the thing with airlines, it's not like they're just going to start tomorrow. It takes a long process, and that's why we spent a long time working with HK Express to launch that flight in Nagoya, and so the timing couldn't be worse with this North Korean news. So that was very disappointing to have that result after all that work from together with the airport that we put into to get that flight going. But we'll continue to work hard, and that's why I mentioned I shared with you this is the 50th is a short-term campaign just to kind of get us going into the new year. But the long-term campaign is this 2-year strategic plan, which was launched last fiscal year. So we have, I think we have been changing the way we do things in Japan. As I mentioned, the online. This year we're going to be bringing social media influencers. They call a lot of Instagrammers, and really focusing a lot on social networks to kind of create awareness and build demand in Japan. And I don't know if the chairman wants to add anything, or if I answered your question.
Ask a question.
Yeah.
So, you're saying for the low-cost carriers that are flying long haul now to Hawaii,
Yeah.
it's because the price that we're seeing. You're seeing more Japanese travel to Hawaii, right? It's increased. That's
Yeah, their airseat capacity has gone
Sure.
up. Also, with Hawaii specifically, they're a long-haul destination. So big carriers like JAL or ANA, they can sell business class seats. Very difficult to sell business class seats to Guam. It's a three-hour flight. So people, actually the LCC model, single class, it works well for a family market. But
So is there any discussion to kind of work with the airlines? And perhaps I know the airport has as well an incentive program that would kind of offset the high costs. Because just like you said, you are investing in this FAM tour and bringing, journalists to Guam. But if you're able to offset the price of the fare, you actually bring, tourists here, right? And they speak about their experience as well. Is that something that you're working out?
Oh yeah, so in April we launched a new airline incentive support campaign, the $250,000 in support. This year we're going to speak to the board about how we can maybe increase that amount, because it costs way more than $250, but we're also working very closely with the airport. And
does that result in fare reduction, or that's just resulting in ensuring that the flights are still flying from those cities?
That money would go towards them. So if you want to start a new route, you would have to invest, probably $1 million, $2 million to get it going. So that's, especially when you talk to some of the new carriers, they're just looking at the losses of the first year of flights. So anything you can do as a government to help mitigate that risk with some support that'll move you up to the top of the list, because every destination is asking them to fly to their destination. But we're working very closely with the governor's office, the airport, and GITA to see how, especially for Japan, how we can create a program to help the existing carriers, as well as offer those rates to new potential carriers. Yeah, so we do have a team together, and we're very focused on trying to get additional seats. Yeah.
Does anyone else, any of the senators, please, you can go ahead and chime in. Speaker, go ahead.
Well, a couple of things. The first one was you had a thing about you want to win the web. One of your points.
Yeah.
I have a Google search graph of Googling for Guam, and you'll see that there's this huge spike in August and early September, and then it's leveled off again. And so I just really do think that everybody has to realize that there was a huge interest in who and what Guam is at one point. I think it was over 100 million searches.
Yeah, we've never seen that kind of international interest in Guam on our website and Google. Yeah, we have the same analytics. Yeah, exactly
So-
right. Yeah.
I mean, that's something that we're going to have to work with and around. That really is a major issue. That adverse publicity during that period is hard to overcome. But to follow up on the chairman's last question about the airport, before all this happened, I was chiding Customs and Quarantine because they wanted more money to be able to hire more individuals, customs agents, but they can't because a few years ago when we all met to determine what their landing fee or that fee was to be charged, all of you insisted that it was the $11 charge, and I kept insisting, let's take the 15. And everybody was saying, no, don't take the 15 because that's going to make the tickets more expensive to get to Guam. But it's also not helped by the fact that the airport charges Customs and Quarantine, I don't know, $3 million in rent and fees to be an integral part of the airport. And I just don't understand that need to take that money, what little is being collected. I mean, at this point, I'm not going to be asking for that $11 to be increased. A couple of months ago, before this whole thing happened, I had mentioned to Customs they should have taken my offer at 15 rather than the 11. But if we want to, as a government, your group's going to have to start and talk about why we're charging the caretaker, mother's caregiver, rent to take care of mother. I understand that the airport needs its operating funds, but somehow they have other sources of income, and this rent for a building for their customs, both downstairs and at the part that was released out, is just, I don't understand it. I mean, the only analogy I can figure is we have, and it's not that they're, irrelevant to the operation. The airport couldn't open if customs wasn't there. And so why are we charging mom's caregiver to take care of mom?
Mr. Speaker, if I could answer that question. The airport operates under strict monitoring from the Federal Aviation Administration. Within our facility, there's 4 regulatory agencies, including Customs, the Guam National Airport Authority. And all 4 of those regulatory agencies include CBP, TSA, and the agriculture, include actually FAA as well on the tower side. They all pay rent to the airport as well, as mandated by federal compliance. I do agree with you with regards to the caretaker about if Customs was not operation, the airport wouldn't operate. It would be the same thing with TSA. If TSA wasn't there, the passengers wouldn't leave. But again, they're also required by law to pay rent.
And is the rent comparable?
Yes, sir. Just for full situational awareness to the folks here, the stakeholders of the roundtable, the airport has been working. I'm extremely proud of the employees and the management of the airport. I believe we've been engaged with the process of ensuring the success of all our airport airlines and our tenant partners. The way we go about our budget process, it usually starts on the springtime, and we work closely with the airlines based on the budget projections for the year. And so when we come up with our total employment costs, which is actually a broken down figure of what our arrival fee is, departure fee is, the loading bridge, and things of that nature, we come with that number to the airlines. Folks think, I mean, I came from the line agency, and people think it's rough coming down here to the legislature for the budget process. It's extremely complicated too with the airlines as well, because they're all business folks, Fortune 500 companies. So it can be a scary process, and it still is for me today. But again, we have been working diligently with our partners, and the last 2 years we're proud to have not increased the employment costs to the carriers. And that actually, Mr. Speaker, is with a 3 to 6% growth the past 3 years. So we've been tightening our belts at the airport, and we continue to do so. We're working, like Nate mentioned, with certain stakeholders within the government, and we're prepared to go to our board next Thursday to present some incentives for the current market, the current carriers in the Japan market, and some incentive programs for just new routes and new carriers. We actually have one in place today for new routes where it's 50% off our operation costs into the airport. And in addition to that, we're trying to work with our board to look at approving another incentive program where not just for the new routes and airlines, but even for existing. And I know it's hard with time slotting issues, but incentives for operating outside our peak bank period. We are extremely concerned. Everyone likes to tout it that we are the first and last impression of our tourists. So we, again, in our efforts to try and increase, customer satisfaction and spreading out, and again, I know it's difficult, in the airline business, but have an opportunity for airlines to operate and maximize the 24-hour period at the airport, because we are open 24 hours a day.
Okay. I'm very happy to hear that TSA and CBP upstairs is paying, because I've been under, I guess, the misimpression that they haven't been paying, or that they're not being charged.
No, sir. Everyone at the airport pays.
Okay, and
We even pay. We have a section that we pay rent to. Yeah, everyone pays at the airport.
okay, I guess I'll have to review that, and then I'll probably send you a follow-up later on that.
Okay. Can I speak on yours?
Okay, I just want to follow up on your question about why people go to Hawaii and they don't come to Guam, and why Japanese go to Hawaii and not to Guam as much now. Let's go back to history in Hawaii. Hawaii tourism history goes long, okay? The first tourist that came was on a Matson, on a cruise ship, and that's where all the travel started, where the people who live in the mainland felt Hawaii was the best island because there was beach, there was Diamond Head, blue ocean. People live in continental U.S. So that was their dream always, to go to Hawaii. Even that said, Hawaii every year come out with new product. Okay, their 50th state, they got resource of money from the feds. So they always come out with a new destination market product. Disney Hotel, Second City of Kapolei, new residential component of high rises, experience in Ala Moana Shopping Center. Now they have 4 floors, I believe now. They have shopping experiences there. People travel not only from Japan, but from continental U.S. All the airlines from the U.S., every year they have new U.S. carrier goes to Hawaii. Unfortunately, Guam, the only carrier that we get is from the Asian market, Taiwan, Philippines, Japan, Korea. We don't have as much of U.S. people that visit Guam. The only people that come here, probably a small number, is for diving or just to see where Guam is on the way to Palau or to Chuuk or whatever. Or we get a lot of government people that comes here. okay? So we need to really, really take care of our product, our island. This is the only resource we have here. We have to, whatever we make money on tap or whatever, we should put back to the island for the product development. The other thing is, Hawaii is also selling experience to try to make people try to live there for repeat business. Let me ask the question. People go to Hawaii. Why? Ask that question to yourself. Because the weather is good. You want to get things that you need, convenience, right? Shopping. But we can do that here too, as long as we put our resource money back to the product. Unfortunately, whatever we make money, some resource money ends up in a different product. Okay, but we are, with the senator's help, we're trying to bring in new bond money or whatever to improve our product here. Okay. The other is, now Japanese, if you look at the history, Japanese has more choices now. Okay, they got the choice to go to different Asia Pacific destination. Before, their only choice they had was to come to Guam. That was their first experience to enjoy USA. After they graduate here, they go to Hawaii, they go to West Coast, they go to Europe, and the travel agent used that as their experience to come to Guam first to let them get the passport. Okay, once they get the passport, you got them hooked. Okay, now let's go follow up this group incentive tour. Okay, you did the Guam already, I'll take you to Da Nang or Bangkok. And like the president said, tourism is the biggest industry worldwide now. Everybody's fighting for the business, and we are one of them too. But what are we doing? We need ammunition. We need the product to sell and compare. Say, you want to ride on an airplane to Hawaii 6 hours, 7 hours, or you want to come here 3.5 hours? There's no jet lag. Door to door is only 15, 20 minutes. You can hit on the beach right away and go back with no jet lag. Because I don't know if I can recall the presentation, but people are not having babies anymore. Okay, the people are getting old. We don't have new generations. That's what Japan is having crisis now. Even Korea too, if I'm not mistaken. They're not having babies or children. And so what that happens is the school is closing down. Grade school, high schools, because they cannot get the population. University are trying to merge because they don't get enough students. So what that means is the population in Japan is decreasing. So what we have to get, what we can get now is the elders who has the money, the time, and resource. And they're running out of time too, like I'm running out of time. Okay, every year I'm running out of time. But the thing is, everyone wants to experience a new destination. But we have to show Japanese that, hey, every year we got something new is coming up here. We got this product, we got this new show. We have a lot of stakeholders here trying to bring a new product here. That's why if you look at a lot of statistics, people want to eat good food. They want to experience fusion food. And we, luckily enough, all the kids that from Guam goes to the mainland, study their culinary, comes back and open their restaurant. Look at it right now. I see a lot of the food trucks near Agania. Before 2 years ago, we didn't have that. That is some product too, okay? And Hawaii has a product of food truck areas that people go there. So it's product development. We have to keep on being innovative and be ahead of everybody to come up with new product. I wish when everybody travel to a different country, bring back the ideas. What success the Bangkok had, what success Guam can do. Okay, I saw this one product in Taiwan. They use an open space just for containers, and the containers are all restaurants. You've seen that too, right? So those kind of things, let's bring back, and then let's market those kind of ideas. And of course, then what will happen is the travel agent will have interest in, hey, I have something to sell to my tourists, to the incentive people, the young people. Instagram is another. We have to be up in the trend. Selfies. Right? Lieutenant Governor, selfies. Right? Everybody does selfies. So that's the kind of thing that we need to keep up. We cannot just sit and think that, okay, I have more airlines to come here, they'll come. No, the airlines, because of the regulatory is so stringent coming from Japan here because of safety, ETOPS that the President mentioned, the LCC I mentioned before, LCCs are owned by Japan Airlines and ANA. Nobody, not like Korea where the LCC are independent and they can just make up their mind and say, I'm coming to Guam. Okay, Japan, Big Brother says, okay, LCC, Peach, Skymark, don't go. You stay home. Travel, let people travel within the domestic. I'll take care of it as a full service carrier. I'll take care of the outside. So, you know, it's all integrated, and culturally, why are we losing groups? Why are we losing the students? The problem is, yes, North Korea. And I don't want to mention safety anymore because nobody can guarantee safety here in the world. I can guarantee that I'm not worried. I got the Navy, I got the Marines, I got the Air Force, I got the nuke sub, I got everything here. I'm more worried living in Japan in a way. Because what they got, what kind of defense do they have? Domestic self-defense? I don't want to go all politics here, but it's a matter of how we got to give positive message for the Japanese citizen. Hey, Guam is Guam. We live as it is right now. Nothing is threatening us. Everything is A-okay. But for the students, the principal cannot face the parents. If just in case that 1% something happened, they have to face the parents. Why did you authorize the students to go to Guam? Right? Good example. Unfortunately, there was a massacre in Las Vegas. Japanese students were there too, but luckily they were in a different area. But I'm sure they're going to be criticized for that, choosing Las Vegas for their travel for the students. But to them, it's not news because nothing happened to them. Media, unfortunately, in Japan is if it doesn't happen to them, it's not a news. Okay, so Guam, they don't have any more news. So when Guam was threatened by North Koreans, they want to make it into news. So they went out to Costco, Costco or whatever. People buying for their weekend barbecue. They say, oh, they're hoarding water. They're hoarding Coke. I mean, you know, they were interviewing people to set up interviews to make them like Guam is in a scare mode. So those kind of things is not the message we want to give to Japan. That's why the PR campaign, new product campaign, give the Instagrammer, bloggers, these are the people that are going to come here and send message back saying, hey, Guam is as normal as every day, except the weather. Lately it's being not helpful. Agania Beach is all muddy and all that, you know. So those kind of things too is something that we need to correct. Is product development. Get new product, get things going. You know, what else I have here? Yeah, so.
Mr. Chairman, is there, are you also competing with any official notifications from the government, travel advisories against Guam? Because there was some mention of that in passing in the media, but are you aware that that's actually what's going on in Japan as well, where they're advising them against officially?
No, I'm not aware of the Japan Ministry of Foreign Affairs or anybody giving any negative message, don't travel. Have you heard it?
First of all, I believe that our President CEO can answer that because we just had a discussion with the Consulate General of Japan, and the Consulate General had reported to our President CEO that basically the Consulate General itself, which is part of the Japanese government, has not issued any threat level to Guam. So it's basically to them is zero. And and then the reason why we did this is because we wanted to ask a favor to see if there was any way that they can sort of elaborate the meaning of zero, saying that there is no basically a threat level, right? Instead of just saying threat level zero, basically add more words to it. But I'm sure that our president can explain the conversation.
for the government themselves too, they cannot promise or they cannot make a statement saying it's safe, or they only can say that the threat level is 0 or there's no threat level. That is common knowledge. Is coming out of the U.S. Announcement. So other than that, they just have to the media, hopefully they're not going to target Guam again. Lately, only news that we see now is how North Korea is reacting to this new exercise that they have right now going on. And to be positive, the North Korean Kim Jong-un is visiting their farmland and all that, so give positive message to the people North Korea. But it's just that right now Japan is going through an election too. I believe the election is next week. This Sunday. So to select a new prime minister and all that. So they are into their political chaos too. So every place right now is in chaos mode. So what we can do is, as Guam, is to keep on sending positive message to Japan, because we don't want them to say, oh, I don't hear anything from Guam. Okay, I hear a lot from Bangkok. I hear a lot from Singapore. I hear a lot from these other destinations saying, please come, please come. We're okay. We have a new campaign. We give you free food. We give you free this, free that. So, of course, the agent will want us his business too. So Singapore is giving this. Let's send people to Singapore. So, but we just have to keep on. We have a director here from Korea, so she can explain more on Korea market too.
Well, I'm sorry that I'm just new on GVB, and then I live here 40 years, and this is only what I see from last 40 years on the tourist market. The first Japanese, when I first came over, Japanese tourists came on Guam, a lot of old people who has been like sick, so they go to Cocos Island, nice, weather and nice breeze, and they're getting better, and they're going back to Japan, and they say Guam is beautiful, one of the wonderful paradise. So after that, become their family coming back to Guam. So a lot of family coming back to Guam, they're enjoying. So after the family, there are a lot of men coming here to playing golfing. I wish, every time we go to airport to pick up somebody, we see many men bring the golf bag with a full reservation of the golf playing. And after that, after golf, and there's a lot of wedding people coming over, young generation and their family just come to Guam. They get a wedding and spend money here. It's much more cheaper than in Japan. So there's the circulation like going around 10 years. So Japan market has been 50 years already. But a lot of people from Japan, came to Guam, but we don't have any repeat program for them. We don't have any repeat product for them to come back. Golf, before they come over to play, right now how much they charging each golf course to the older tourists on high season? $240 and $220. South Asia or Vietnam or all other country, with the package, their price kind of very low. Why do they have to come on Guam to spend that much money, especially hard to booking and hard to get a hotel? So today's tourist trends is a young generation. So when they come here, they're trying to save money, not only hotel, they want to stay some of the motel or guest house, okay. But they don't have anything to play. They don't have anything to do. You go to beach on the nighttime, so dark, scary. A lot of homeless people and a lot of local people drinking there, so scary. Only they have light front of a Hyatt hotel through the Westin. So when I even wanted to walk on the jogging at the evening, I even try myself from Hilton Hotel all the way through Hyatt, and I took my camera and video to take a picture from Hyatt all the way down up to, Hilton all the way up to Hyatt. So dark and so dangerous. A lot of people drinking there, whistling for the ladies, girls, and even the rock on the beach area. You can even see how you can walk through the theft. A lot of tourists, after eating the dinner, after they go to, show, whatever, they want to go out to the beach to playing with the family and kids. It's kind of so dark, there's nothing to say for them. You want to give positive message to Japan, fine. But when you raise the kid, you say, oh, this food is good, this food is, if you keep on saying this food is good, instead of you let them try how they feel, how they find out. So we need to make some kind of product or some kind of program to make a repeat customer to coming back. Not only for Japan, even same Korea. Korea is now growing up. So what I understand, Japan economy is 10 years behind the US. And Korea economy is 10 years behind from Japan. So we are much behind than Japan and US. So when it's just starting time for the Korea. So there are a lot of things happen. They don't have any education and they don't learn anything. So a lot of things happen, but this is growing time. So after 10 years, maybe 5 years, 3 years later, we are getting better. So once we're getting better on Korean market, maybe there are another Chinese market coming in. We will have the same thing. But they will find out sooner or later, oh, Guam, we come here one time, paradise, nice ocean, nice weather. But next they want to come. What do we have to call them? There's no repeat things to be. What I wanted to suggest that I've been here in GBB 9 months, and I see a lot of tourists from Japan and Korea. They are coming on, school break and vacation time. So a lot of, especially Korean, a lot of moms, they really care about education. So they wanted to send their kid to Canada or States to like language course. So why don't we make some kind of program in GBB or the hotels? You have 5 hotels here, so why don't we make a program, GBB, and then all summer vacation, make a package, English learning center on the summer vacation, each hotel maybe 5 different days, first come, first service, making a program. So when they come and learn, maybe 10 to 12, we put it in the people to let them work together with making Chamorro cultural hat with all, the coconut tree things. When they learn, we give them a certification. So this certification, when they bring to the school, in Korea, school count their, score. We need some kind of, make a product to let tourists to coming back on Guam. Especially right now, GBB putting all the bus stop at the hotel side. I was mentioning before, we need to put it in hotline there. A lot of tourists, when they come from Korea, Japan, not only tourists, if any local has anything emergency, running down, falling down, heart attack, whatever, we need to call them, but sometimes Korean, all the tourists, they don't even know how to speak English. They cannot call, they cannot explain, oh, this is something happened. So I was mentioning about GBB to put it in the number on each bus shelter, and to put it in hotline, to press the hotline, number 18 on bus shelter emergency, just GPD come over. We need some kind of program like those things. This is what I learned from last 9 months from GBB. A lot of them working 20, a lot of them working hard. And then Guam economy, most of the Guam economy is starting by tourists. So we don't support tourist program. We don't support the legislature didn't support GBB, then how can we make a good program? How can you make a good safety program? How can we learn our, how can drive our destination to the good program? Legislature give it to GBB to car and key, but you don't give a full enough for the gas. How can we drive the car to right direction? This is my opinion for the GBB. We need to make some kind of product or some program to repeat customer.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Hong, for that. And I think that's what you said is right. And so we look forward to working with GBB and for GBB coming up with those types of programs, and we'll give our full support as well. So thank you very much. Yes. I'll get, sir. We'll just get to Mr. Carlson, and then we'll also get to the others here who wish to provide any statements. Mr. Carlson?
Thank you, Senator. Hafaday, everybody. Just to reiterate a couple of statements that were made earlier by Mr. Morinaga and Mr. DeKnight, we do have a working group. We are diligently looking to try to see how to address the situation. You mentioned that we're doing things in a reactionary manner. The board passed a 2-year marketing plan, and to GVB's credit, they have made some adjustments to that plan to be able to address the threat from North Korea. And I think during the budget time, there was it was known what it was that was coming. I don't think any of us understood what this would do for us. The budget was transmitted August 30th. I think the first threat was made somewhere in the neighborhood of mid-August. But like a lot of people in the region, and you talk to people from South Korea, it's rhetoric that they've heard and they're kind of callous to. Unfortunately, when somebody says Guam, the callus remover comes off real fast. So there are this FAM tour that GVB is putting together is coming along quite nicely. There are a lot of what's needed: corporate sponsorship, buy-in from the government, buy-in from all the stakeholders to alleviate some of the concerns. And I do have one observation with the speaker's graph that he provided earlier. Every time that I saw a live broadcast from Guam, you know, we sure do look beautiful. I mean, if you just quit looking at the guy and you looked at the beach, you know, there was after a while, I didn't care what the guy was saying. I said, man, that's a beautiful shot. You know, I just hope people are remembering that. But rest assured, Mr. Chairman, that we are meeting to understand first and foremost what proactive steps that we can start today. We can reinvigorate the Hafaday spirit. We can reinvigorate the genuine kindness that was reinforced in a presentation that I had the privilege of attending along with Senator Castro last Saturday at the Hyatt. We had a guest dance group, and this lady, they're indigenous Americans that do interpretive dancing with a message, you know, to the two-legged have to take care of the winged and the four-legged and the ocean. And we're not doing too good of a job. And so it was told in dance, and anybody who knows me knows that was difficult for me to deal with. But at the end, I got it. But one of my biggest takeaway was the fact that she visited several middle school dance classes, and she interacted, and they did something with Nativo. She referred to her experiences with people she met throughout her visit, and she remarked about the overall kindness of the people of Guam. And I just sat there and I said to myself, man, I haven't heard that word in a long time. But you know what? That's what we are, and that's what we need to get back to doing as a community while we sit here in a round table thinking about, do we need this? Do we need that? Well, let's get back to basics first. You know, let's improve our product. Let's not just say it's somebody else's problem. Let's own it. Let's start doing that first. Nate's projections for tourism, the adjustments that they originally had, that he ratcheted back down, look pretty much like status quo, given what it is that we just experienced. And if you take the economic multiplier effect, and tourism is stagnant to the point to where it's 1.5, it's still way up there. I don't think that we need to do a lot right now budgetarily. But I do think that in my position, I am going to be very keen on looking at expenses that may or may not be essential, and going through that exercise as we did back in 2012. But before we do anything, before we start saying, oh, so-and-so needs this and so-and-so needs that, we need to get ourselves in a position to look across the table at somebody and say, I'm doing my best. Are you doing your best? Are you rocking and rolling and selling Guam and putting people in airplanes to come over here? Because, it's a business cycle that everybody needs to buy into. And I think we just need to start from that perspective, have that positive mindset, move forward.
I appreciate that, and that was really where I was going to, is that in terms of the impact, right, to our tourist attraction fund, and as you said, you've explained it perfectly about the kind of status quo of arrivals that we're seeing last year versus the revised projection for 2018. What we're hearing out there now from the community now is that there's a trickle effect already. We have employees that are getting reduced hours at work. I was talking to one gentleman here, a hot dog stand, up in Rev and Tax, has told him, like, yeah, we're seeing some sort of decline, right? And so as far away from tourism as that, you're already starting to see, and that's where, as early as now, we want to be able to put everyone together, and I know that you will watch this and look for ways to really hold the line, right? So, but we also have Gita J. Rojas here, and one of the things that we'd like to be able to do too, as early as now, Jay, you're still here, right? Is what type of assistance we can provide to our small businesses. It's not even financial. I'm not looking at that right now, but technical assistance to kind of help our businesses kind of weather the storm. I remember being in the industry many years ago when I think it was the SARS. We had some problems. It was very difficult to pay the power bill, pay rent, and so we need that type of assistance. So is Gita looking at that now as well and trying to put something together?
Gita is actually committed to be able to support businesses, both large and small. Unfortunately, we have this reputation out there. We only actually look at the large businesses and bringing them to Guam and give everybody tax credits to do so. But the other side of our business is to be able to look at the local businesses, the Guam Product Seals, to be able to help to train them to get them to the level where they really need to be successful. I myself just did a talk to a professional development group with the Junior Achievement Team, not just students but also professionals, to be able to take a look at what does build a successful business, because that in essence, of course, helps the island's economy, and everything does actually end up coming around. At the risk of, so from Gita's standpoint and our programs to be able to help those businesses succeed, we're there. We're there to be able to hold the hands of every Guam Product Seal holder that's actually out there. As you know, we're also working with the Department of Chamorro Affairs to be able to support the small businesses that are over at Chamorro Village. We'd like to see Chamorro Village back into the role that it was supposed to be as that incubator program to help those small businesses stay in that role, move on when they've actually outgrown their space and outgrown their options that are there. And then move into the real economy, be that bigger small business that's out there to be able to get support. I think there are some things that we can do better, but there are things that some of these things are actually out of Gita's control. We can't offer tax credits. We can't offer things, GRT tax credits, for instance, because, what we're looking at is we're looking at also trying to be able to support the island's economy and everything like that. There are other things that we can do, but as far as tourism is concerned, and those smaller businesses that are there to be able to focus a little bit more on the tourism industry, I think some of the things that we really want to be able to look at is, for instance, how committed can we get this body, being the legislature, to support the projects that GVB needs to be able to do what needs to be done. I think, Nate, you have a a number that's out there. I believe it's 70% of the True Islands economy depends on tourism. What is that number that's out there? 60% of the True Islands economy supports that. And you know, that's really what we really need to focus on is what can we do to be able to, as the chairman said, build the product. You know, we need to all be out there and come together to build the product. One of the things that was mentioned is, yes, you know, there has been talk about some projects that GVB does need funding for. You know, that's definitely a need. I think we're all here to be able to say that these are projects that the GVB needs to be able to build the product and that they can market that's out there. But then it gets clouded in all this other rhetoric as to whether or not borrowing is the right idea for this. And I think that just impedes the growth, you know, the economic development and growth that we really need to be able to do. The final standpoint is, yes, you know, we need to be able to get to the point where we can be, as the chairman said, that Hawaii. You know, what do we need to do? We need to attract the Hawaiian businesses or the businesses that are in Hawaii that people are attracted to. But we can't really do that with some of the impediments that we have currently on the books right now to be able to get to that point.
So, Mr. Rojas, if I can just request if perhaps Gita can play, you know, that more aggressive role now. I mean, I'm sure you'll have to work, and I know the governor has put together a task force, I believe, but to kind of, if I may request that you include that effort of, you know, going out to the businesses, if it's the Guam product sale holders who you have under your, I wouldn't say jurisdiction, but at least you have some relation with them, to reach out and see what type of assistance could be provided now. And really, it's across the board. Just this morning, I had a bus driver from a tour line saying that he was actually reduced in hours because of the decline, right? And so that's happening. And if this continues, it'll get, I think, a little bit worse. But if we're all here, all of us here are helping and coming up with ways to be able to mitigate that, I think, as Lester said, we'll be able to weather this out together.
Absolutely, and you know, we can actually do a survey. I do see the chamber membership, the chamber leadership here to be able to kind of work with the chamber to go from there. But you know, as we start to look at that as well, and I know that this body has actually been tossing it around there, you know, I think if the support is really requested for the small businesses, we also need to take a look at another issue that is a little bit controversial and whether or not, you know, wages do need to be increased. You know, so if we really want to talk about that, then we also need to think about what effect a minimum wage hike would also have on the small businesses that are out there as well.
Yeah, one other thing is, you know, to make new product, we need investors. You know, we're one of the largest real estate holding hotel company on island, and we're building one more hotel. And so we're betting on Guam to be better, okay? But the issue is, as everybody knows, we have H2 worker issue. The construction cost is getting higher and higher. It's a contractor's world now. They can ask anything and they will get it. And that should not, it's not healthy. If you want Guam to be better, to develop, we need workers. Once we start getting workers, we'll get investors. So I need, if the senators can all get together and then tell the feds, come on, don't what you call strand us, saying, hey, do it yourself kind of attitude. We just want to take care of the military base. No, they should go outside, take care of the people first. And then take care of the base. The base is important. That's one of another economic engine for us too, the base. But the thing is, we need workers too. Once we get this development go, guess what? The people will come back to Guam because they're going to have employment, and then we're going to have new product. And it's a circle of life. You know, whatever you do, you'll come back.
Well, Senator Lee, and then Mr. Lansangan will recognize you, and anyone else who wishes to provide any statements.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank everybody for coming to the table today. I know we have a great group of individuals here who are really committed to making sure that we address this issue and continue to keep tourism in the forefront of our minds, as it's, you know, as the President in his awesome presentation was able to show us. One thing that I would like to see in terms of comparison, a lot of the graphs were really helpful to kind of tell the story. But if maybe you could get back to us with a slide with information about how much the travelers from each destination are spending. So with regard to, because it's my understanding that maybe a traveler from China is not equal to a traveler from Japan based on days of stay and how much they typically spend. So that would be helpful for us to kind of get the full picture. And then a little bit more information on how we can be proactive in other emerging markets, like Hong Kong, or the chairman mentioned the United States, and maybe other areas of Southeast Asia. I'm not sure what else you're looking at, Nate, but it would be really great to kind of see that. And I know that your research department does a really good job, and I know that you have come out with a new form for people when they're inbound to be able to fill out. So if we could get a little bit more information from them, more data on what their needs are. Specifically, you were mentioning the aging Japan market. So if there's something that we can do on the policy side to make sure that we are addressing accessibility needs or healthcare needs, if they come here and they're not able to get into certain establishments, or they're having trouble just navigating the island or getting around, maybe it's a language barrier issue, as Mrs. Hong had mentioned. So all of those things that we can do on our end to just improve the product and definitely look at safety and security and those types of things. And then lastly, I want to kind of touch on what Mr. Carlson had mentioned, and maybe this is something like a takeaway for all of us today. What can the people of Guam and all the stakeholders who are here in this room, what can we do today, given that our resources are really limited? What's some kind of action that we can take aside from in addition to the recovery plan that you detailed? I mean, what is it that we can do to really improve our product? Can we take more responsibility and really, really show that Hafaday spirit, have more respect for ourselves and also for our guests? Like, what is it that we can do to really turn this ship around before we're too far gone? So I kind of want to think about what it is that we can do, because I know that there's definitely something within our grasp that we can definitely do today to kind of make those changes. So if you could get back to us with maybe some ideas, that would be really helpful. And thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Castro, and then, sorry, you just had one question earlier, Mr. Lansangan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have two basic questions. The first one, Nate, would be, notwithstanding the decline of the Japan outbound market, have the other markets declined proportionately? Or do the players in the current market, have they gone up? And if they have, do we know why? Or is it attributed to perhaps new market entrants? I'm not sure. So that would be my first question. I'm not sure if you're prepared to answer. And then my second question, this is probably a little more basic than that, is, how do we know what tourists want? I heard a couple thoughts come out today, probably that little native experience, a little more immersion into the natural resource environment. Have we looked at, aside from, suggestions of a more aggressive marketing campaign, but do we know definitively, empirically, what your market wants? I've heard that perhaps it's a pricing issue, and is that legitimate? Because I know, for example, Mr. Ada here, he'd spend a pretty penny on a Rain Spooner shirt as opposed to getting some other product, and because he's familiar with the quality and it just suits him right in. So those are my two basic questions.
Thank you, Senator, for that question. First one was, what do tourists want? Yeah, I think at the basic level, it's. I heard Dr. Rifai, he's the UN World Tourism Organization Secretary General, and he always just speaks about what makes for a good society, makes for good tourists. If you have clean beaches, nice environment, friendly people, good infrastructure, roads that aren't filled with potholes, and landscaping that's kept up and not tongue-in hanging over, those things are what makes. We should do that for ourselves. The clean parks, good park facilities, and then the visitors enjoy this as well. So I always try to stress that, everyone's like, oh, should we do it for the tourists? Let's do it for ourselves, and the tourists will benefit at the high macro level. But specifically on what they want, as Milton mentioned, yes, Japan is an aging, maturing market. So one time we were great for that family destination, and we were more driven by volume. So all the agents would buy up all the seats and all the airline seats and the hotel rooms, right? And then have really affordable packages that would be bought a lot by families. So that's why we're trying to diversify our mix, going after more of those school groups, the MICE groups, the corporate incentive trips for only 3.5 hours away, instead of taking everyone to Hawaii 8 hours. Takes 5-6 days. You come to Guam for the weekend, get back to work by leave Friday, come back Monday. So I think that's a key in product development. That's why we're mentioning Japan investing in their tourism. They have, they always had Disneyland, and then now they have Universal Studios, and they added Harry Potter World, and they have Legoland now in Nagoya. These are all things, big projects in Hawaii where they have the Disney Resort, Hilton Hawaiian Village. At every Hilton hotel, even in the Narita airport, right? Hilton Hawaiian Vacations is promoting Hawaii. So and specifically to Hawaii, Japanese have a long relationship with Hawaii, and it's a state. They have how many islands? Six islands, 100,000 rooms. A much bigger product. So I think we have our exit surveys that we do for all the different markets, so you can see some of the trends on what people want. But I think with Japan specifically, we do have to appeal to what's called the silver market, that aging population. And I don't really see Milton going to the beach. That he rather ride the motorcycle, do some golf, ride his Harley. With Lester over here, so we do, and then on the Mrs. Hong's point, some of the golf is, we're talking about Southeast Asia. You can golf for half the price of Guam, and you have 3 people, one holding the umbrella, one teeing your ball, and the other one hitting it for you, right? So I think that's what we have to continue to do. And the first question was
Relative to the market share, have the other players gone down proportionately as the Japan outbound market has also gone down?
Yeah, and I think important thing to realize is, as I mentioned, once you're 80% Japanese, is that now we've really diversified. In Korea, you see that tremendous outbound, 25 million or 24 million outbound. Japan is about 17, so you're talking a good 8 million more. Has really, we have 6 Korean carriers now, So we only have so many accommodations, hotel rooms. That's why I mentioned the supply of hotels. So if you fill those up with one market, the other market, something has to give, right? So it's always a balance of the different supply. And what I really notice about tourism is, we want to diversify. We want to add Korea, but that put pressure on on the Japan market and really change things. So the sales model in Japan has changed, and it's in the last 3 to 5 years, everyone's telling me this is the most change they've seen in such a short time. Now you throw in a disruptor like the internet, and people going from, getting the brochure to going online and buying their travel online, and now on mobile phones. So the industry has really, really been changing, and we're really trying to adapt as quick as we can. And the industry here is also trying to adapt. We just did a roadshow to Korea. Our team is just coming back, Pilar is just coming back, and we're doing the southern part of Korea. But we had 25 members attend with us from Guam. So a lot of them are Japanese, and so everyone's trying to diversify and adapt to the changes. And in any disruption, there'll be winners and losers. But when you change, there'll be some differences. And so for the Korean market specifically, I know that's put a lot of strain on the optional tours because the Koreans generally pay less than the Japanese would. And so I always kind of tease, I see Chairman Baldiga back there, and we wrote the Tourism 2020 plan, and we really highlighted as number 1, improve the quality and the yield. And so the price of Guam has gone up, and we don't have that $300 package from Japan that really pushed a lot of volume. But those were people, butts in seats, that would come and do a lot of Chairman Baldiga's optional tours. So, it's a changing thing, but for example, his business, I know he has invested heavily in not relying on the travel agent to just, before you would sign the contract and they would bring $50,000 a year. Now you need to go online, you need to market your business directly to them. We're partnering with TripAdvisor this year. So the important thing is, on TripAdvisor, there's no hotel above 4 bubbles on Guam. And that's not necessarily that our hotels aren't that great. We just have to learn how to respond to reviews, how to use TripAdvisor. So we're doing seminars for the local businesses and then encourage your guests to use TripAdvisor. And just the last point, because I'm looking at Senator Castro, a real tech person, is and Speaker Cruz about Google. we're actually working, well, so we have a global partnership with TripAdvisor in all the different markets, and we're also going to be working with Google. They have there's kind of an incubator program in Google, and they became aware of this North Korea issue, so they want to help Guam to work on this spike and turn that spike from a challenge into an opportunity. So we did get a lot of free publicity, not the kind you want as a destination being threatened like that, but people do, the map of Guam, they did, as Lester said, see our beautiful beaches, and there were stories about the people of Guam and our tourism industry. So I think we're going to try to maximize that. It's going to take time, with any PR to turn this around into our favor. So hopefully, we can start doing that. But we will be working with Google as well on this. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lansangan, and then Mr. Shinohara.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, marketing will not work. All this money will just be wasted if you will not fix the basic concerns of the tourists. Well, even before the Korean threat, there's already concern by the tourists, especially in Japan. 61% is for their safety. That's before the Korean threat. What does it mean? They're being robbed. They're being burglarized. There's more crime this year than last year. So you're just going to waste all the money of Guam if you will continue to market and market and market without addressing the concern of the tourists. You address the basic concerns, then tourists will come back. You see, based from the exit survey that is compiled from your agency, report by PDN, the plan to visit again is only 48%. And that's a failure. That means they will not come back or may not come back anymore. And then the safety is 61%. The terrorism is 65%. Well, maybe that one can be addressed because there's no terrorists here in Guam. Now we can do some educational input on that. But the problem is their safety. Because just like what the lady there said, it's dark, especially in the secondary road in Tumon. In the Tumon strip, yes, there's a lot of bright light. But the secondary road going to the apartments, to small hotels, it's very dark. And then even Marine Drive, very dark. From the airport, if you've been to Europe, in Greece, it's 1 hour drive from the airport to the main strip in Hotel Road. All very bright, the light. And the problem is the street light in Marine Drive, only one is working, and it's not very bright. See, how could you promote Guam if you cannot fix the basic concern? And then there's no police visibility. And that's number one. Then in your letter to PDN, you even put here, Guam Visitors Bureau launched the Visitor Safety Officers Program to act as a concierge and crime deterrent in Tumon. So what's happening? This one is not working. Well, because there's a lot of crime and there's no police visibility. See, how will these tourists come back?
I'm not sure that I'm supposed to be answer this, but what
Sorry, ma'am.
I'm sorry, what is your name, sir? My name is Mrs. Hong. Your name, sir?
Said free.
And are you from?
I'm a concerned citizen. I'm a small business owner.
Okay.
Let me finish first, ma'am. Sorry to interrupt you. I apologize. Then, just even in the airport, just recently, there's a woman in the airport that want us all dead, want us harmed, the people of Guam. She want North Korea to bomb us. She want all the Chamorro from the mainland that she hoping that President Trump will deport them back to Guam. No, that's a sign of of negative image? Do you think we are too harsh on implementing our rules on custom jobs in dealing with passenger or transit passengers? That's something need to be addressed because it is sending a bad image to the world. So why will a woman say like that? Oh, I hope North Korea will bomb Guam. I hope all the tomorrow will be deported back to Guam. Are we too harsh on treating those, or that's something that needs to be addressed? See, because in the custom papers, it's already addressed that if we have drugs there or not. So, if possible, don't ask anymore if somebody is carrying drugs, because you are sending a wrong image to the world or to the people coming here. They can get offended. You know? And then, even the Korean tourists. Right now, there's a surge in Korean tourists, but this will go down very fast. If their concern will not be addressed. What are these concerns? Expense, 36%. Expenses, they said too expensive because some of the businesses are implementing double standard. When it's tourists, they're charging double. Like in the nightclub, strip club, restaurant, hotel, or some businesses. This needs to be addressed. There should be only one standard. Whatever what the local pay, that's what they should pay too. Because they will know that later. And they won't come back anymore once they know that because they're mad. And then the safety again, 35%. You see, we saw a lot of Korean walking along Marine Drive, and sometimes they hesitate because it's too dark. We cannot even put so many street lights on Marine Drive, and we're spending so many millions of dollars to GBB. That's something to be addressed. If you want your product to be attractive, then this first that you need to address. Bright light, safety, police visibility, and treatment of the passengers or people going to Guam that will start in the airport. And who is doing that? The custom officers. Once you landed your foot on Guam in the airport, there's not even any toilet on the right side. You have to control your system because the toilet is in the baggage area. Maybe something that needs to be addressed, sir. Yeah, because that's very important. This is the only airport where there's no toilet on the right side because all the toilets are on the left side. You know. And then about our village, you see a lot of dead dog in the village. That's a very bad image for Guam, that our tourists will see all these dead, rotten dogs along the streets. And it will also work if you have something to welcome everybody in the airport, especially if it's a big group, like people singing or dancing. That will really be a big help, Mr. Denay. Well, we have a very big advantage against Europe right now, because there's no terrorism here. People are scared to go to Europe, and that's our main advantage. We have not only Guam, but we have Saipan, Tinian, Rota. So the 150,000 or 140,000 per month is still little, because Bangkok they get like almost 2 million a month on tourists. Thailand, the whole country, 32 million. Hawaii, 600,000. You see, it's I think the way we need to address all this concern, the basic concern, Mr. Denay, before spending all your money in marketing and sending the travel people here, and then they'll just be disappointed. Because their product, that's very easy to fix, it's not being fixed. And just like you said, there's 7,556 cancellation. equivalent to 9.5 million. That's why I was calculating the 52 million borrowing in the future. I hope it would translate to 42,000, because once you put that money, there needs to be a return. There needs to be another 42,000 tourists aside from 150. So there should be 200,000 tourists a month if you will invest all that money. Well, I think that's all for now that I can say.
Thank you very
Mr.
much.
Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lansangan. And, you know, we have a lot of people on the table here today, people who are listening, so your concerns will definitely be taken into consideration as well. Mr. Shinihara, but Senator, you had a question for
Before
Mr.
Mr. Excuse me, Sam, if you just let me ask one question on a comment that Mr. Rojas made. And basically, he said that there are impediments on the books right now that really hamper us. And bottom line, I want to know what impediments he's talking about, so maybe we can address them.
Actually, the impediments that I was talking about are essentially there from an economic development standpoint. One of the things that really hinders a lot of the investment that we might be looking at, especially as Gita's other role is to be the real property manager for most of the government lands and opportunities, is this 5-year lease. The 5-year lease requirement, so or limit that we can have on 5-year leases, unless this company does actually end up coming in front of the legislature. You know, I think that's something that actually scares off a lot of the investors. We have a couple pieces of property that we're working with the CLTC on to be able to go out and look for commercial investment. But as soon as we say that if we are looking at a lease that would not be longer than 5 years unless you go in front of the legislature to be able to look at it, then, you know, we simply lose interest on that. So, you know, there's a couple of other things that we might be able to look at. You know, are we able to offer other types of incentives to everyone? You know, when we do look at companies that do want to build technology, a new technology industry, for instance, something that we'd be able to use to be able to kind of support a lot of the tourism that's out there. Our hands are tied as to what we can actually go through and be able to offer. You know, where there's only really the QC program, and then even if we do offer a QC, there's the criticism about actually giving away some of the tax revenues that are out there. So I think we need to have a little bit more of a conversation to try to see what we can do to be able to look at it, but also if we can get the support of the legislature to kind of say, all right, fine, where do we stand on development? Is development what we want? Is it something that we can be able to look at? Because, you know, again, from this standpoint with Gita, with the airport, with the Visitors Bureau, we all do want to look at increased development. Of course, we want to make it responsible development. But we also want to be able to kind of, you know, is development what we want? Is increasing the tourism industry what we want? Because then we have to remember that that's the bottom line and that's our ultimate goal, and not have it clouded by any other thing that's out there.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator, if I could also add, you know, along Jay's comments about the 5-year lease restriction, at the Guam National Airport Authority, we actually saw, lost the potential to have 6 different types of aeronautical related companies, you know, start up at the airport because of that 5-year lease restriction. And then again, it was just the fact that, you know, these investors did not want to go through that process.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much, and Senators, thank you for giving us the opportunity to have a good, I think, largely productive conversation about the tourism industry in Guam. I thank you for the time, and I want to thank, you know, I'm a pretty skeptical human being, but I have to say that, you know, the Visitors Bureau, the employees at the Visitors Bureau, and quite frankly, everyone who supports the industry have been really working hard to post the numbers that we've been posting, and it comes with great effort. But I think, you know, the challenge, I think it's been articulated by almost everybody that's spoken, is it's the product, right? And we need to make sure that the investment in the product continues to happen, because it is one of our biggest impediments in increasing the visitor capabilities to the island. We have a substantial amount of effort in the markets, and I think Mr. Lanzana had a lot of concerns with respect to things that needed to be done. And I think one of the challenges is that Nate and his team shoulder a lot of the burden for too many things, right? The Guam Visitors Bureau should be, their main activity should be promoting Guam as a destination. And it really shouldn't be the key player with respect to infrastructure development and upkeep and making sure that, police are present and beach cleaning and but all of those things Nate and his team do day in and day out, right? And it's I think they do a great job with the limited resources that we have. Could we do a better job? Absolutely. But I think that, because resources get, pulled and prodded, from the GVB and amongst the different entities that really have the sole responsibility of doing these things, I think we've created confusion with respect to, who owns what. I think, if people spend time listening to the talk show in the morning, you get people that call up and say, hey, the sidewalk is, broken and the street lights are not working in Tumon, and what the hell is Nate DeKnight and his team doing? Because they're clearly not doing things that, make a difference to the people in Guam. And then, they talk about the Kmart intersection and the grass not being cut in Marine Drive down south. And these are all different things that need to get done, and they're hugely important. But, as a person who wants to make sure that our focus is on, bringing people and driving that economic engine so that everybody else can partake in, in the spoils that Nate and his team work so hard to do. It's really difficult because, when you try to have a conversation about Nate, about, making sure we're driving hard at tackling the Japan travel challenges that we're seeing, we're going to have that conversation maybe in 3 hours because I'm, up at Adaloop talking about, streetlights because so-and-so, did this or did that. It's a little bit of a distraction. And I think, to a certain extent, it's become commonplace at the Visitors Bureau for Nate and his team to get involved in that. And I think it's become an expectation from everyone. And I think it would help. I think some of the self-imposed impediments that were discussed earlier, the 5-year leases, I think, certainly, I've been involved in conversations with the airport, from a United Airlines perspective, and certainly, I think things like that inhibit people's desire to sign, make the initial investment into the island, and I think we could help ourselves, and I think this conversation's a good first step to doing that. So, thank you for the time, and I appreciate everyone's help to focus on what the issues are.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that wishes to provide, anyone in the, Mr. Baldiga, please, if you can join us up here.
Mr. Chairman, Senators, thank you so much, members of the board. I'll keep my remarks fairly short. I'll try to touch on just 2 specific areas, one of which I don't think was really touched on very much. The first one is the mix of business. The speaker was very correct when he said this is reactionary, some of this plan. I just respectfully suggest we're mixing a bunch of different things here. There's short-term and long-term. So in the longer term, we can look at new markets and we can look at feeders from Southeast Asia and so forth. Those routes take multiple years to get there. In the short term, we're facing, I think, frankly, from my perspective, we're skating on much thinner ice than we've really kind of acknowledged at the moment. So I'd just like to point out, we had 1.1 million Japanese. We're now down to 600,000. As a comparison, Saipan, when I first opened the sandcastle there, had 550,000 Japanese, just about the number we're getting close to now. We'll probably be below 600,000 next year. Saipan currently has less than 40,000 Japanese. So let that sink in. We're at the moment where Saipan was 10 years ago. Saipan now has below 40,000. Their total arrivals are the same as they used to be because they now have 200,000+ Koreans and 200,000+ Chinese. But as that mix came in so heavily, it did chase away the Japanese. And in the 2020 plan, we really pushed diversity. And it's critical we did. Think about where we'd be today if we didn't have the 600,000 Koreans. It'd be a totally different discussion at this table, and the lights would be being shut off in different places. Not being dramatic, that's the fact. So it's happy that we push the Koreans, and frankly, as much as GVB did and does a great job, the driver for the Koreans was really the advent of the low-cost carriers. That's why we have them. So I'm sometimes a little bit concerned, and I really respect and appreciate everyone's effort to try to get engaged in the industry. But GVB puts a lot of effort into trying to come up with the right mix of where they spend the money. And sometimes, understandably so, people who may not be in the industry full-time may say, wow, look at that great Korean growth. We need to put more money in Korea. Actually, Korea is driving itself quite nicely, primarily because of the low-cost carriers. And pushing too much money in that market may not be necessarily the most productive thing. I think historically, we put a fair amount of money into China trying to lay the foundation for that. And I think long-term, that's where we'll end up in 10 years. It is certainly the right idea right now to cut that back and move it back into other markets in the short term. I think, again, the chairman and management has done a tremendous job. They're really deep in this. They do a great job. They really know what they're doing, and I'd really urge you to rely upon their suggestions. There are short-term issues which should be reactionary. We really need to kind of arrest this issue in Japan and recover. And then there's the longer-term thing. But for me right now, the focus is really in the near term. I'll give you an anecdotal example. Our dinner cruise P&L came out a couple days ago. We had about the same revenue as last year, but much less profit, and I wondered why, and so I dug into it. It turns out our mix of business was 75% Japanese, 25% Korean last year. This September, it was 75% Korean, 25% Japanese. And our average rate was $88 per person last year. It was $66 this year. That's a 25% decline. The only reason our revenue was okay was because we had quite a few more customers. However, those customers have to be transported, fed, and serviced. So our cost per person stayed the same, but our total costs were sky high. So we're now in the midst of early layoff discussions, which I hate to do, but here we go. So I would just urge you to consider, as we look forward at the near-term mix of Korea is a great market. We really appreciate it. Without them, we'd be dead right now. But we really need to hold the line on the Japanese. If they start sinking from 600 to 500, 300, we're going to have a serious problem, and particularly since Korea is a very nimble / volatile market, right? So Japan is stable, it's steady. I'm not saying we should do old school business for the rest of our life. I'm just saying it's an important market for us, and we can't really afford to let it slip much further. Korea is quick up, but everybody who was here during the days of the Korean airline crash knows. I mean, I used to get 50% penetration of 200,000 Koreans. We had 100,000 Koreans a year coming into Sandcastle, and when Cal crashed, we had 0. So it's a very nimble market. It's very appreciated, but it's quick up. It's also quick down. And that's what I mean when I say we're skating on rather thin ice. And so I can't urge you strongly enough to please let GVB give them the resources they need to put a lot of effort and be reactionary to Japan in the near term for the next 12 to 18 months. It's really important. That's the first thing. And then the second thing, I really appreciate the roundtable and the discussion. There's some new faces and some old faces. I have to admit that I feel a little like the ghost of Al Israel sitting here, because I'm thinking back to the last bond hearing, talking about the infrastructure, and I remember him very specifically standing up and saying, it's like Christmas. It's like you guys are Santa Claus and it's Christmas giving candy away. And so with all due respect, I would really urge you, please leave the TAF alone and put the TAF into tourism. If the TAF had been put into tourism for the last 5 years, we would have none of these problems right now. You asked what the tourists want. I can tell you what they don't want. They don't want broken tires driving over potholes. They don't want to be knee-deep in flooding waters. We have to put the money into the infrastructure. And period. I mean, I urge you, if there is another bond put forward, please resist the urge to sprinkle $1 million here, $2 million there, $1 million in this village, $2 million, and then there's nothing left to fix the foundational things that should have been fixed. There have been 2 bonds that have been pushed forward for the flooding, for example. One was under Senator Gutierrez, or Governor Gutierrez. We did some of it. We didn't do all of it because we didn't have the money, and EPA shut down the push out into Tucumán. The second one, same thing. We really didn't allocate enough money, and then we pulled the money back and spent it on other things. I urge you, if there is another infrastructure bond, to please spend it in Tucumán on infrastructure. Hasn't been touched in 30 years. It needs that. The product needs to be at least safe, clean, and stable. We can worry about bells and whistles later. I would really love to see the TAF spent on things other than, with all due respect, police overtime, MRI machines, and other things that are really needed, but not the foundational intention of the enabling legislation of the TAF was to be used for tourism. And now more than ever, we need to leave the TAF alone and spend it on tourism and not funding line-level agencies. That's my ghost of Al Israel. I apologize for that, but I think it was important and it needed to be said. So I really appreciate all of your time, and I really appreciate your looking at these issues. It means a lot to all of us who make our living this way.
Mr. Bodega, there was one sentence that you used, and it's the one sentence that I think everybody has been tiptoeing around and not wanting to say. It was in your first point about the diversity, and to quote you, Saipan went from 550 to 40,000 Japanese,
Right.
because as the Koreans and Chinese came, you used the words, chased them away.
To some extent. That's not the only reason, but that is one reason for sure.
Those were your words.
Sure.
And so I'd like to, I know that's really a sensitive topic, but if we're going to have a productive roundtable, that issue has to be addressed, because that issue, as it relates to Japan, no offense, goes to your second point of even if we spent all the money in TAF down there, you said we wouldn't have these problems today. I beg to differ. When the PDN says 1.5 million pounds of bombs are, I think you exaggerated, but I think you really hit the one question that needs to be discussed. And trying to figure out is how much money are you going, how much do we spend from GVB to address that issue of trying to overcome a cultural, I'll call it, right, discrimination.
Senator, at the moment, I don't think we're in fear of that as much as Saipan was, and the reason is we have plenty of excess capacity quite a bit through most of the year. Nate discussed earlier how the Japanese industry held room blockage and it kind of kept out the other markets. That's kind of breaking up. It's actually quite healthy for Guam, the diversification and where we're moving. It's just we face a little bit of, my intention wasn't to really drive into the Korea versus Japan issue, simply to suggest that we need to support Japan in the near future.
And exactly how much do we increase the 8 million to 16 million and convince them to come anyway?
Yeah.
And
I
we'll
think
have a
that's
hotel just for you. I'm trying to figure out what exactly is that, because I wasn't the one that used the word chase them away.
Sure.
I want you to try to explain to us how we address that fear and that feeling,
I don't
and
think
how much money is going to address that feeling, if it's possible.
The money won't address that fear. We're not quite at that point yet because we have enough capacity. The markets aren't sort of imposing on each other too badly right now. It's also a different generation than it was before. The young people don't care as much as the older people do. We don't see the complaints on the cruise as much as we do in Sandcastle, for example. They won't sit in the same booth, but on the boat they're okay. So it's a different demographic, and it's a different, I think that issue is not as much of an issue today. I guess I was saying if it keeps going in the direction it's going, at some point, it's okay today, in my opinion, in Guam. There's no clash. Everything is sort of okay. They coexist. No, they do, Senator. They find their own hotels, and they rather coexist. If we get from 500,000 down to 300,000, you may see an acceleration down to 0, I guess is my point. So if at the moment, I think that's not the material issue. My point was really simply to suggest that we really make sure that we continue to support Japan. And to your second point, I don't really know how much is needed. It's not simply a dollar amount, it's how it's spent. But my first point was that we really should trust and rely upon the experts. This discussion is great, and I would encourage you to have some private discussions with GVB management. They're really good, they're very capable, they know what they're doing, and I think they're on the right track. We've done things the same way for a very long time in Japan, we really need to change how we do things, but I think they're well on their way towards that.
Or even how much money are we going to have to spend to try to convince the schools that they should continue to send the kids or the baseball team to come anyway?
Yeah.
Should we pay the baseball team and to come just so we can show that it's
The
safe?
groups will not come in the present environment anyway. We've already lost, there will be a ripple because the groups that are booking today are not booking Guam. So we'll see no group business this year. We'll see very poor business, group business next year. There's very little you can do about it because they're making their decisions today. And it'll cycle back and they'll be back for 2019. There'll be extra pent-up demand and cyclically we'll be fine. But that's another good point, though, that we'll miss the groups for the next 12, 18 months, and GVB just needs to have the resources to find other ways to fill in as best they can.
Which then goes to your second point of if we had invested it all the TAF in Tumon, we wouldn't have this problem today.
It was unfair to say we wouldn't have the problem today, but it is fair to say that if we don't do something about it now, it will exacerbate the problem, and we'll have more serious problems tomorrow. But I don't think if we spent that money in Tumon, it would have affected, I'm talking about all the money that was spent in non-tourism that could have been spent improving the product.
I understand. I'm just saying, these were your words.
Sure.
Chase,
Sure.
and it would not happen today.
Sure.
So
Chase
I
is what
just
happened in
want to just clear
Saipan.
that.
It's not happening here, but we're in danger of it in the near future if we continue to slide, I guess is the clarification. Thank you for your question.
Much.
Thank you. Thank you, Senators, very much. Thank you.
Hi, I just wanted to give a bit of an outside perspective. Let me just kind of give some foundation of this first, as I'm actually a resident of Las Vegas. And I am fortunate to do a lot of travels between the Nevada, Las Vegas. Sure, my name is Aaron Bauer. I'm the district manager for Tommy Hilfiger. I've been on an extended assignment with our recent expansion for our location at the GPO Mall. So my area of expansion or responsibility is, like I said, all of Nevada, Las Vegas, as well as the Hawaiian market and Maui and Guam. So I have a little bit of some perspective about some things that I just wanted to share a little bit. But I want to begin my remarks by first saying, one of the notorious sayings in retail is always for every one negative comment that you put to a person, you really have to reinvest about 10 positive comments to really reinforce, getting away from that negativity. And I know, given the experiences I've had while living on this island for the last 7 months and also experiencing the threats from North Korea, from a marketing perspective, there's always two ways to address that. Either try to address the negative to continue to compound the negative, or to turn around and be able to provide tenfold of the positive about why a person would have to do everything to try to avoid about wanting to come to Guam. What that gives to me as a perspective is my travels when I go to Hawaii, and people have talked about product, and I think that was a really great conversation, because when I go to Hawaii, what I expect to find is still a culture, and the culture about the Polynesian Cultural Center, the dances, the history, who they are as a people and how they are together as a family, and how I relate that is very similar to here on Guam. Is that there is so much to be able to talk about of the positives, to be able to continue to be able to invest in that from a marketing perspective, to continue to say this is as great of a place. The one thing that Hawaii has that Guam does not have from a tourist perspective is the impact of the Australian customer base that really visits that market a great deal more, and their spend is usually a lot higher. So that has certainly helped that economy from a tourist perspective that Guam does not have. But I do think there are some similarities, and I do see similar trend patterns with the growth on Guam. I see the same similar growth pattern on Hawaii. Equally in perspective, since the threats and since the transitions between the Japanese and the Korean customers, I also see the declines that are kind of similar in the exact same way. So I do think that product is a big piece of this, but I also think two other pieces about that product. One is certainly experience. And the one thing that is, I think, more unique about Guam than Hawaii is the ability to communicate effectively with the Korean and with the Japanese customer. So if I had to look from an investments perspective, and I was trying to look and put a business plan together between now and, let's say, the next 3 or 5 years, I'd also look at the investment at the school level, first in the high school level, about how to incent them to be able to become more bilingual, either in Japanese or in Korean, Because realistically, you know, the workforce is beginning at the age of 16. So they're already in our education system so that we can turn around and be able to have them start to be able to evolve into a more bilingual perspective, be able to relate to who this international customer is that's visiting Guam, because that is part of the experience. There is no doubt that the one thing I've shared with our executive team is, and somebody said it earlier, the experience on Guam is that people are amazingly friendly. It is one of the most open and interactive societies, if you will, and people who not only take care of themselves as a family, but they also embrace difference with other people visiting too. But with that has to come with the ability to communicate, and that changes the experience. But you can affect that through investment by either suggesting scholarships or, you know, incentives in some way to get that evolved in the communication base between those two languages. Then I also think it's equally as important to potentially have roundtable discussions because of the fact that I have an opportunity to be able to travel from Las Vegas to, and once again, even the experience between Honolulu and Maui is extremely different, not only from a price cost perspective to stay in a hotel, but equally so to come to Guam. But what is that experience inside the hotel? In some places I can find on Guam where I might have to still plug into a modem to be able to connect up to my computer versus would I have that same experience on Hawaii? And so I think that goes to the point of really that overall experience, the overall product, not just about what you do to come here, because what I would love to see is more of the society of Guam, of being to understand the Chamorro background, those dances, those cultural settings, because that's what, you know, is being evolved still, you know, more rapidly in Hawaii than what I see potentially here on Guam, at least at this time. So I think that kind of goes hand in hand, but I think one of the things is that, look, like I said, I've had a chance to stay in a lot of different hotels, and even on Guam, I've stayed in a lot of different brands, but I've also stayed in Airbnb. Are all those experiences the same to that international customer? Are we really incenting that customer to want to keep coming back and say, I just want more of that? I mean, there's no doubt there's a lot of spas here. There's a lot of activities you can get involved with, but that's where I'd also go then to the technology base, and I'd also go to the communication base. Because the one thing that really, it was touched on briefly about the change in who the customer is today, because the millennials is a conversation in every conversation on the mainland and on Hawaii, and that wasn't really touched on so much in this dialogue, but I think it goes to the heart to say the millennials is the next customer base in revenue that everyone is connecting to, but they're connecting to it also from a technology base. That's why we talk about social media the way we do. Because their experience is very different about the activities that they want to participate in compared to those that are leaving the employment now and enjoying the retirement, and the families are much younger. And so their experiences of what they want, I think, is different. I think we definitely need to connect to that too. So those are just kind of some of the outside perspectives I just wanted to share as well.
We appreciate that, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else? Mr. Knoll?
Hi, Bill Nolt from GVB Board, and I'm also the chairman for the Japan Marketing Committee. And what I'd like to add to all the conversation and everyone's comment is that I think that everybody is kind of like on the right, you know, the right place and trying to get things on the right road, right? And that in talking, in a sense, from the perspective of the travelers, you know, in Japan coming to Guam. Basically, I feel that with all the little things that we have to worry about, I think what they worry about is much less. You know, I think they want to travel with less headache, right? They don't really want to worry about the potholes and all the things that we have mentioned. But I think those are our problems that we have to take care of. And one thing that we also have to remember is that what they want is they want simplicity. They want to be able to look up the places that they want to go, and they want to be able to book it. They just want to go there, enjoy themselves, and then go home, right? And in order to accomplish that task for them, you know, for them to experience this nice vacation to Guam, I think that you know, I think that the reason why we're here is trying to figure that out, and I think there's just so many little things that we need to do. And Mr. Rojas, was it, that had mentioned that we have to start from point 1, which, you know, which actually is not just from the airport, but, from where they're coming from, right? Korea, Japan, Taiwan, or so forth. But so it all really starts with the airlines and the reservations and the bookings and so forth. And so if other destinations are affordable, and I think we need to be affordable. If other destinations are appealing, I think we need to be appealing. And then when they get to Guam, I think we need to be able to allow them in with the checks and balances that we do. But I don't think we need to let them wait for 2 hours just to get them back into the island. And I think the first thing when they come to Guam is that, boy, that was a long line. We have to wait. And then that, I believe everyone here knows that is our problem. We live here, so we don't really experience that 2 hour or 3 hour wait, but they do. And I think we need to start from there. We need to talk to our partners in the immigration, the federal government, and so forth. And then when they come out the airport, and I believe a lot of the Koreans take the taxis and so forth, and they still have to go in zigzag lines to ride the taxis and so forth. But so I think that every little thing that they experience, we need to think about and then try to expedite their experience and let them be able to get to their hotels or wherever they're going to stay as quickly as possible. Be it the taxis or the bus companies or the rental cars or so forth. But then, and then we need to build on that infrastructure, build the infrastructure to do that. I also feel that the prices has to be also affordable, because if the rental cars in Okinawa is only $30 or $20 a day, then I think that we should also be compatible in that sense, and that our rental cars don't have to be $50 or $60 a day, because then it becomes double the price and so forth. Of course, we do have problem with our fuel costs. Our fuel cost is kind of high compared to other places, and that I believe that our senators are working on the the fuel pricing and talking about the fuel pricing and so forth. And I know about the 4% that was added on to fix the roads, and I'm actually in favor of that. So which is good, because it's going to help our roads and so forth. But overall, I think that there are things that the GVB can do, and we are thinking about doing them, and we are working and discussing so many little things and big things and long-term and short-term things. And but as Mr. Rojas also did mention, the street lights and the roads and the potholes, and believe me, when it rains and then there's a hole in Tuman, I'm the first one to take a picture and send it in, saying, hey, there's a pothole, let's fix it, right? And so those things, I think, have to be fixed someday and very quickly, because I just came back from Japan, and I also traveled to Okinawa and kind of got a glance of what they're doing and how they had improved and so forth. And they have improved a lot. They had diversified. They had Chinese travelers, Korean travelers, not just domestic travels. When I got on their plane, it was pretty full. They didn't serve meal, but they served drinks. They had free Wi-Fi's all the way through the air. We don't. Just little things like that. I think we need to start from point zero and become compatible or even better. And I think we need to improve on the Wi-Fi's, as the gentleman had mentioned, that sometimes we have to stick a cable in to access the Wi-Fi, and then in most of the other areas, you can catch the Wi-Fi's, right? And so. And then in GVB, we have discussed about free Wi-Fi's for tourists and so forth, and then so that's going to be one of our discussions that's going into place. But as a destination, I think we also have to think about that, and also faster access, because with more access to the internet, I believe there's going to be more opportunities and more businesses and more people will be able to communicate with the travelers, and not just travelers, but also businesses. And other than that, of course, safety officers are there because of the lack of safety, I guess, in some of the areas. And that is, again, another important that I just like to add in response to Mr. Rojas. And concur with him. But I believe that we all know that, and that it's been worked on. And I just want to say that it is important that we get the safety and then also the education and the schools and so forth. So I think it's not just one thing and that we are working on, which is the North Korean issue. But I think while we work on that, I think we here in Guam need to also work on our little things that we can improve on the island, because it is going to be, it is a part of our long-term plan or strategy, because having that great destination to go to, I think is basically a reason to come, to come to Guam. And so I just like to say that as much as, sometimes our hands are tied behind our back because of the amount of, the budgets that we have, these are things that are needed, and not tomorrow, but basically today. Okay. Thank you.
Lady, did you have a First Lady? You can go ahead.
Okay, well, thank you for holding this session. Excuse me, I have a bit of a cold, but I'd like to really thank you, because I think this dialogue here is really going to be effective, and we really need to address some things. I think it's time for us to do a pause for the cause, what's happening in tourism, our #1 industry. And this, the GVB is doing an excellent job in doing what they need to do. But let's think about it. Our tourism started with early flights coming from destinations as called aircraft utilization. So they would fly out of the countries late at night to land in Guam. So they come in very early. And so over the time, our tourism's grown. I think it's time that maybe the hotels need to revisit how they operate and sustain that, because we can't be charging 2 nights, for them to come in and check in late, and when they do leave in the afternoon early. So those are some of the things we need to really look at in improving. I think every one of us in this table have room to improve on how we support tourism. As Mr. Nault said, the experience at the airport, and it's too bad Chuck left, because I think there's ways to improve how immigration processes our people. And if that's the peak hours, then get the people there to support the peak hours. We can't really control INS, but what do we do with building a relationship to let them understand that those are our peak hours? And lo and behold, I thought it was only INS to only discover recently that Customs has the same problem. So of course, my son-in-law works at Customs. I said, what the heck? Why is this happening? He goes, well, Mom, it's been happening, but you just don't know about it. So, that's a government entity. We have control over that. What are we going to do to help them to expedite our visitors out of the airport? So we need improvement there. Likewise with TSA. So there's room for improvement for all of us. And this is a time as we reevaluate what's happening on our island and our #1 industry that we take a look at that. I mean, it's been said today, our cultural experience, that's why they come here. Our hospitality. People love what we offer. You don't need to have a playground or an amusement park. You just have the taste of our food and our people. So they're going to come no matter what, but we need to be able to make sure that the experience is great. And then also the other thing is we need to also look at diversifying. Because what's happening in Japan and what's going on in the Asian market, granted, Korea is there, but what did we do to Taiwan? Taiwan's been operating 50 years here on our island, and they closed their office here, and then Eva Air pulled out. Why didn't we catch that? And what can we do to bring that back and regroup that? Because they're good visitors as well. We promote Guam as being where America's day begins, gateway to Asia, Asia's gateway to America. We need to revisit some of these core basic values that we have, and how do we, sustain it and then continue to grow it. GVB needs a lot of support, but we need understanding from our leaders to be able to support it. And then we need these agencies. Sometimes, honestly, I don't think Customs and Airport Authority are government agencies. I tell Nate, don't we work for the same government? Don't we have one government? We need to work with each other. We cannot be working in silo, because we support each other. And really, it all begins with first impression. when they arrive and when they leave. So what do we need to do? We need to face the music. And let's stop kidding ourselves. As Speaker Cruz said, we need to really lay it down and then figure it out and prioritize, and let's move forward. Because it's happening. We're seeing the decline in our business. And it's only a matter of time before it gets harder. And it's only a matter of time before people have shorter hours. Only a matter of time before people get let go. And we can't afford that. Our island is too precious. Our people work too hard, and we've done so much to improve our number one industry. So what can we do as an island to improve our product, improve the experience, and show off our culture? I mean, if we all just focus on our strength and be positive and not blame anyone, but focus on a positive, and things will be better for Guam and improve tourism, our number one industry. So much for what's happening with the military. That's a whole different conversation. But, you know, we've gone this far. So please, let's give GVB the support, but let's all work together in doing what we need to do for Guam. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, First Lady. Ma'am?
Thank you. My name is Deanna Crisosmo. I'm the store manager for Tommy Hilfiger. And what I thought was important about myself and my district manager being here today was obviously just to see, you know, what are the numbers and what are we looking at as far as what's going on in tourism and why we're seeing, you know, the obvious decrease. In our visitors, thank you. The obvious decrease in our visitors, and I'm one of the companies actually that we're seeing it, you know, firsthand as much as the hotels. You know, the first thing out of the gate once we had the North Korea event happening was what's going to happen to our store immediately, and that's the main concern is what's going to happen to our visitors coming in, because that's a huge portion, that's a huge percentage of our business, and that's what we see coming in is, of course, our Korean customer, our Asia customer, all of our international visitors coming into the store. So with my concern today is mostly to appeal for GVB, and not really much of the legislature, but for just Guam Visitors Bureau alone, is how we can actually, the retailers and GVB, how can we partner together more often? And I think it's so important, especially for us, and I know everyone here is talking about the experience and the infrastructure and, you know, with the roads and lighting and things like that, but I think most importantly is the experience that they have just because it's the money alone, it's what they're coming to do, is to spend on shopping, spend on you know, jet skiing and, you know, outdoor craft and things like that. And so, of course, number one would be their shopping, and that's the huge portion, I think, as far as GVB. That's where a huge portion of your numbers are talking about, especially today. And so I think the important thing to think about, and what I'd like to propose to you, is just how the retailers can actually work a little bit more one-on-one with Guam Visitors Bureau, especially coming out of a mall, not only just our small business owners, but also our large business owners. One of my things is, as far as working for a company that, you know, obviously we're not a locally owned company, but I would like to appeal to our locals as, you know, buying local, because I am a local, and you know, I am a manager of a store that, you know, we're run from an outside entity, but at the same time, we're here for the community, and we wouldn't be here for the last 4 years, most especially without our community. So what can we do more so and partner with GVB, not only just from a store standpoint, a single store standpoint, but also as a mall, as a group, you know, Guam Premier Outlets, Tumon Sands Plaza, Micronesia Mall, things like that. So how can we appeal and actually come together a little bit more, and maybe what can we do in order to help you, and maybe you help us as well. You know, we have our own agenda as far as marketing goes, but you know, now seeing the numbers, and obviously we go hand in hand, is seeing the numbers as far as our international an international destination, and for all of our visitors coming in, is what can we do more to partner with you? Yeah.
Yeah, I want to thank you, Ms. Castro, for your comments. And before that, you know, there's one thing that I've asked GVB, and maybe that's something we can really pursue, right? is that, and I know you said you did it in the past, some sort of local Guam dollars, right? Because we know if we're going to go to Japan, and I support the efforts that you guys are going to do to say Guam is safe, but if we can kind of think about perhaps to help the small businesses, the local businesses here, is turning some of that money into dollars so that the tourists that come here can use it to spend at a local store, right? I know you said you did in the past. Already, so yeah, if you can, okay, yeah. Nate?
Yeah, thank you, Senator, and I was going to bring that up. And I talked to, I think, Pilar is over there, young lady, Pilar. In the past, we did do this Guam dollars, and they actually work with Citibank because they treated this like as currency. So it was a major kind of logistics to, we were following government procurement, right, is to organize a program. But we are looking at implementing some sort of value-added dollars that could be used locally by visitors and use that as an incentive to come, to kind of bring down that cost and add value to visitors and a great marketing tool. So we're working towards that. We're talking to the team how to do that. And specifically, we do have the Shop Guam campaign. So did you sign up for the? Yes. Okay, yeah. So we're trying to work with our retailer partners through the Shop Guam e-campaign. And we have an app, and that's free for use. And then I also encourage you to sign up for the Hafaday Pledge if you haven't already. And that's a part of it. Okay, yeah. So these are the programs that we have. So I'm glad to hear that you're taking a part of it. And then the third thing is to become a GVB member. And for example, our research is very good. We can offer numbers. You get access to the website. And then we had Barbara Wald come, and I'm sure Monty made you attend Barbara Wald. So we offer training for our members. We brought a retail expert to Guam to talk about it. But yeah, we could always do more. So always happy to work with you. We also do road shows. We just got done. Pilar and the marketing team were in Korea, doing the southern part of Korea, Busan, Daegu, and Gwangju. We had about 25 people, stakeholders from Guam, everyone from hotels to retail to optional tours, led by our Vice Chairman Brad Kloppenberg was just in Korea. So we meet with travel agents and other partners in market. We do this in China, we do this in Korea, and so that's another way you can participate with the Bureau. But yeah, I'm glad to hear that you're participating in those different programs. And if you have any other further ideas, we're always working. And like I said, we don't sell anything at the Bureau. What we do is try to get the industry together on these joint programs. And to the Senator's point, yeah, we're continuing to look at how we can kind of implement that program and help our local retailers or different businesses on Guam with some kind of coupon, Guam Bucks campaign. Yeah. Awesome.
Thank you. And in fact, yes, we do take a part in the Shop Guam. We do have the Shop Guam app, and we just took part in the Shop Guam meeting along with Catherine. And I think that's where we go and we think outside the box. And then, if it ever is about, us meeting and saying, let's think outside the box and see what else can we do in order to help us being a part of the community, and what can we help with Guam Visitors Bureau, where it doesn't take so much. It takes more strategy than money. Maybe doing more strategy than versus spending more money. And I know, obviously you have a big job to do as far as thinking about the infrastructure and so much money pouring into that. But maybe we can think outside the box and think of other ways that we can affect each other in saying, okay, this is how we're going to bring in more customers. With Tommy Hilfiger alone, I can tell you that our store alone does so much. Just on a personal and just our customers alone do so much marketing through social media, just through blogs, through their Instagrams, through Facebook. And so we get so much marketing done just from the Korean side, and even just or other Asian visitors just from that end on their own personal media. So things like that on how we can think outside of the box and using that, using that medium, using that route to go without having to spend so much. And maybe, if I couldn't, if each of the retailers couldn't give that much, but at least we can give back through that media is using that route to say, and like you said, was how do we outreach through social media a lot more so, and that's one of the routes that we can go. Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Senators, Speaker, GVB, thank you for having me. My name is Asher Goldenberg. I'm the owner of Guamzilla. We're a new company. Only been open for a little over a year now, almost exactly a year now. And my company essentially exists on two pillars. We make revenue off of the tourism industry, off of merchandising, and a portion of every single dollar that we make goes directly back into the island in the form of cleanups. We've picked up, it's me and my business partner, we got two guys. We've picked up 8,000 pounds of trash off the beaches. This is just the beaches of Guam this year. I'll say that one more time so it sinks in, and when I say it, think of what 8,000 pounds of trash looks like. We've picked up, with our hands, 8,000 pounds of trash off the beaches. So I look at the beaches in two ways, especially Guam's beaches. It's a monument. It's so beautiful. I remember the first time I came here, it just blew me away. I had never seen something like it, and I don't think these beaches exist in Japan very much. So when you see that, it's just unadulterated beauty. It's a monument. But I also see GDP. The people come here to see those beaches. I mean, those beaches are a driver of money, a big driver of money. So anytime someone comes here looking for that beauty and they see this piece of garbage on the beach, that chips away at that perception of paradise that they're supposed to have when they come here. It just chips away at it, just a little bit. And that equals, when they see that sort of thing, that equals maybe I'm not going to come back here, you know? So that's the sort of thing that my company likes to pay attention to. So that being said, I'd like to address a couple of things. The Japanese market has been in a little bit of trouble before August. We've been declining with the Japanese market for a long time. I don't have the answer for that problem, but I think it should be addressed because we're very focused on North Korea. Some people before me had already said it, and I think they're correct. North Korea is a problem, but the problem will be solved. The other problem, which hasn't been addressed, is what's been happening for 5 years. If I'm looking at the GVB numbers correctly, there's a 24% decline in Japanese market in 5 years. That's a problem. So I don't have the answer, but I can offer a little bit of help. My company's mascot, Guamzilla, has very tremendous appeal, particularly with the Japanese. When I take my mascot suit out in Tumon, just for fun, just to take pictures of the tourists, it's the best. People will run like down the road, I love you, and they'll scream that and they'll come give it hugs. I mean, not just little kids, adults, and not just women. Men love this guy too, Guamzilla. And a quick pitch about Guamzilla, he is not just, this isn't like a self-serving thing. Guamzilla's story, in a nutshell, is that he discovered Guam one day and fell in love with the beauty and the culture. So he champions everything that is sellable and amazing about this place. His body represents the physical island. He's got ocean waves on his back. He's green because of the jungles. His belly is sandy because of the beaches. Guamzilla is Guam. And he also looks exactly like what the Japanese find appealing. So he is an incredibly appealing thing. And so for GVB, I offer, however, this is not self-serving. I know it might sound that way because if we can inspire more people to pay attention to Guam through this big cartoon, then everybody benefits. So if that is helpful, at no cost, I would love to be of service. And to the legislature, my company has already picked up 8,000 pounds of trash. I want to keep doing it more. So if I can be of service to you, I offer my services. I don't have the answers, but I'm here to help find them. And for Tommy Hilfiger, we actually have some really cool programs that will help people drive to, at no benefit, this is free, Guamzilla doesn't make any money off of this, but we have a program that we're going to launch soon that will help drive tourists to different retailer locations. So that would be really interesting. If we could have a conversation about that, would be fun. But in short, I'd like to offer my services to everyone at no cost, and I would like to just point out that this has been a problem that's existed before August, and I would like to be a part of the solution and how to address it.
Mr. Guamzilla, thank you very much. I got to say, first of all, I got to thank you on all fronts. The 8,000 pounds of trash you pick up, it's commendable. If I can do a resolution now, then we'll do it. Maybe the speaker's here. He can do. It's done. There you go. So thank you very much for that. And you know, we've heard your suggestions, and I know that these people will take it to heart as well. So thank you. Firstly, you wanted to add something.
I forgot to mention one thing on diversification. I have been in communication with GVB on possibly figuring out how we can also avail to the parole authority. I know it's been an issue. We talked about it 10 years ago, but maybe it's time to research that idea and see how we can, get on the bandwagon with CNMI. I think meeting with them, their Visitors Bureau and the governor and their congressman to see how they can at least know that, hey, we're going to try to go with this route, because it would also help. We know that the Chinese spenders are big as well. So we're also looking at that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, First Lady. We also have met with the governor a few days ago, and we talked about this is probably the time to pursue once again that effort with China, but also with the other markets. You have the Philippines, you've had Vietnam as one as well. That's right. But we still have the visa waiver for Taiwan. So it's just the other markets. That's right. Absolutely. Thank you very much. I want to offer to any of your staff, if they would like to. I look at Pilar. If there's anything, you're okay. Okay, got it. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I just wanted to give you some highlight. We were talking about Hawaii being competitor. In my belief, Hawaii is not our competitor. Our competitor is Japan. Okay? Japan inbound. As the statistics says, Japanese is not renewing their passport. That already tells you that they have better things to do in Japan. And that if you look at the statistic, LCC came about when the foreign exchange was weak, meaning foreign exchange for Japanese to use abroad was too expensive. So they went on LCCs, came on board. So people get cheaper price. They can travel from north to south for $100, $150. They don't mind waiting at the airport at 5 o'clock in the morning to catch a flight that takes you one place for 5,000 yen. Okay, so that means Japanese are satisfied what they have right now in Japan. So we have to change their mindset, the culture mindset. Hey, so we have to keep an eye on the foreign exchange at the same time, but they need always an excuse not to travel too. So the excuse for not traveling now is North Korea, one thing, right? But any excuse they can come up not to go abroad, they won't. But always when you watch the news, the Golden Week or whatever, the yen is weak, they don't travel. When the yen is strong, they travel abroad. They will spend whatever they want. So we need to understand their culture and their mindset. That goes with the Korea, Vietnam, anybody, what their needs are, when to do it and when not to do it. Okay, so our competition is Japan. I believe you, senators, you go to Japan too because you like the product. You travel there, you like the onsen, because they got the product. So going back again is that we need to improve our product. That's all I have to say.
Great, thank you. And the reason why I brought up Hawaii and the statistics we looked at, right, is that for a few years you kind of saw a decline in the outbound, but 2015, 2016, and what's tracking for 2017, you actually have an increase in outbound from Japan. And so when you look at Hawaii had a decrease too, but they've picked up, right, in at least beginning of 2017. So that's the reason why we brought it up.
Yeah, I understand that, but I just want to remind that Japan is improving. By having their increase in the inbound, they improve their product.
Great. Okay. Is there anyone else that wishes to provide any statements? Mrs. Hong?
Thank you for giving us time and working together, trying to making growing up for the GVB Japanese market. We all understand the Japan market is very important. So somehow they're losing tourists. Other side, the Korean is cover for that. So between the Korean cover for that, I hope the Japan market can find some way to bring back the tourists. So we don't know the Korean market when will be going down. So, we need some kind of a program, and we are lucky to cover Korean, what are the gap from Japan. So Japan market has to work together to bring back the customer. And other way, the tourists, we are very lucky on Guam that we have DFS. And a lot of Koreans wanted to come here by the season because the DFS, most famous brand, they're cheaper, 20% cheaper than in Korea. So that's how the tourists coming too. So earlier they mentioning about the Guam dollars. I think it's very important because any place they can use and we can get a reimbursed from the government of Guam. So we need to make this kind of program. Also, we need to make a program to education all the rental car company and the guest house, and then we need to do a campaign program, we need to educate them, we need to do campaign. So after the campaign, we need to give them some kind of a certification like Guam Sure or Guam Certified. So this certification who have on the guest house and the rental car, the tourists can find out it's more safety to, reservation by on themselves. So this is my suggestion. Thank you.
I just want to thank the legislature, the senators, for giving us this opportunity. On behalf of the board of directors for GVB and the staff who's working hard day and night, 7 days a week, and the stakeholders, we really, really appreciate you hosting this roundtable and taking the tourism business seriously. And I just want to thank you, and we all thank you for giving us the opportunity to discuss this matter. And we're very much open for another discussion. If there's any follow-up discussions needed, then we are here for you and for Guam.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and to you, to GVB, the stakeholders, the employees. I thought it was very important that we had this roundtable meeting. I'm sure we'll have additional follow-ups, and just to be assured that the legislature is committed to provide the support that GVB needs, that our community needs to kind of weather this challenge out. We've always been able to weather things out, and we know that working together, we'll be able to do that again. So again, thank you so much. Unless there's anyone else that wishes to provide anything else, Mr. Speaker, is there anything else, senators? We're good? Then if not, thank you very much again, and have a great weekend.